Chapter 110. Nian Bing nodded and said, I've heard of it. Aren't gods cultivated by humans? Prince Rong looked at Nian Bing in shock and said, You actually know about it? The godly mainland is a top secret to the Yangon continent. However, I'm sure that those who call themselves gods are all people with innate domains. From this, you can see how important an innate domain is. If a priestess of the ice goddess continues to cultivate, she might become a member of the godly mainland. I'm already old. Without an innate domain, I'm afraid I'll never be able to go there. Nian Bing, do you know? I only have 2 wishes in my life. One is to go back to when I was young and save your grandmother's life. The other is to go to the godly mainland and see what strange things there are. Nian Bing thought for a moment and said, Grandpa, under what circumstances can you determine that a person has an innate domain? I heard you say that an innate domain is innate, right? Prince Rong said, An innate domain is innate, but no one knows under what circumstances a child with an innate domain will be born. After leaving the mother's body, an innate domain will exist. However, its existence doesn't mean that it can be used. Normally, an innate domain master's innate domain will be hidden when they are young. It will constantly absorb the energy of the human body to grow. When it grows to a certain extent, it will appear suddenly. Thus, most people who have an innate domain become an innate domain master overnight. Normally, if a person doesn't have an innate domain by the age of 30, it can be determined that he is not an innate domain master. I know what you want to say. Now, I can't be sure if you have an innate domain. After all, you're still a distance away from 30. Work hard on your cultivation. A top magician might not be any worse than an innate domain master. Nian Bing smiled and said, It seems that I still have a chance. I still have 11 years. Prince Rong also smiled. It seems that an innate domain has affected you greatly. However, I suggest that you don't have too much hope. When I was your age, I also wanted to become an innate domain master. The closer you are to 30, the stronger this feeling will be. However, after 30, this feeling will gradually fade. You have to understand that the probability of becoming an innate domain master is very low. Even if an innate domain awakens, it might not be a useful domain. Of course, if you can really have a good innate domain, then the closer you are to 30, the better it will be because the longer the domain is nurtured, the more energy it will absorb. Once it awakens, it will bring you great power. Nian Bing smiled and said, Grandpa, don't worry. Although I really want to have an innate domain, I have a good mentality. Of course, it's a good thing to have an innate domain. Even if I don't have one, I won't be discouraged. After all, I'm already very satisfied with the ice and fire homology magic. Just the ice and fire homology magic and mimicry magic alone, I don't know when I will be able to master them. Prince Rong said, That's for the best. I've said what I wanted to say. This is for you. From tonight onwards, come to the study to find me. Your magic foundation is very strong. I will impart some of my knowledge on magic to you. A few days should be enough. Nian Bing was stunned. A few days is enough? Prince Rong had already reached the level of God's Descent Master, and his understanding of magic was not to be underestimated. Although Nian Bing was very confident in her own intelligence, she was not sure that she could master what Prince Rong taught her in a few days. Prince Rong said, Your identity can't be exposed yet. Before you master your magic, it's more beneficial for you to hide in the dark. The few days I'm talking about are just for you to memorize everything you need to remember. As for when you'll be able to comprehend it, that will depend on your talent and hard work. After saying goodbye to Prince Rong, Nian Bing left the palace. Along the way, she kept thinking. The reason why she agreed to return to the Rong family today was because of the benefits, but more importantly, she was touched by Prince Rong's unintentional display of affection and the title that her father wanted the most. As she walked, Nian Bing prayed in her heart, Father, you must be very happy to see me return to the Rong family. You don't have to regret anything. Grandpa has already agreed to let you return to the Rong family. Don't worry, I'll work hard. Since I promised him, I'll definitely do it. When Yen Bing returned to the hotel and walked into her room, she immediately felt that the atmosphere was very strange. Feng Nu sat on the bed in a daze. Her brows were tightly knitted, and her eyes were constantly flickering with a complicated light. Yen Bing was startled by her appearance. She thought that something big had happened, so she hurriedly walked up and asked, Feng Nu, what's wrong? Did something happen? Feng Nu raised her head and looked at Yen Bing's concerned eyes. Did you win the competition today? Yen Bing nodded and said, What's wrong with you? Could it be that the people of your Phoenix clan are here again? Feng Nu's eyes flickered. Her eyes suddenly turned red. She suddenly threw herself into Yen Bing's arms and burst into tears. Why did you lie to me? Why did you lie to me? Yen Bing was startled. She hurriedly hugged Feng Nu's delicate body and stroked the perfect curve of her back. What's wrong? What on earth did I do to make you so angry? Feng Nu hugged Yen Bing tightly. She just kept crying, but refused to say anything. Her tears wet Yen Bing's clothes. For a moment, Yen Bing couldn't help but feel a little helpless. After a long time, Feng Nu's crying finally stopped. She leaned into Yen Bing's arms and choked with sobs. Why are you so good to me? Do you know? The more you're like this, the more reluctant I am to leave you. Yen Bing's heart sank slightly. Feng Nu, what happened to make you so agitated? Feng Nu turned her head and looked at the table. Yen Bing followed her gaze and immediately understood why Feng Nu was so agitated. A table full of food was laid out on the table. Feng Nu, actually, you don't have to say anything. It's so disgusting. You actually ate it that day. No wonder you went to the toilet so many times. Yen Bing, I'm sorry. Yen Bing's eyes became gentle. Silly girl, what's there to be sorry about? As long as it's made by you, it's a delicacy in the world to me. Because it's your good intentions. Feng Nu's delicate body trembled slightly. Her arms around Yen Bing tightened. But Yen Bing smiled slightly and cupped Feng Nu's tear-stained face with his hands. Silly girl, every word I said is true. No one is born knowing how to do anything. As long as you're willing to work hard, there will be a day when you can make delicious food, right? Don't you think it's very interesting to let my stomach grow with your skills? As he said that, he made a funny expression. Feng Nu laughed and said, You're so annoying. If this goes on, I'm afraid you'll be poisoned to death by me before I can master my skills. Aren't you afraid? Not afraid, of course not. If one day I'm really going to die, I hope to die in your hands the most. Dying under a peony flower, being a ghost is also romantic, hee hee. Feng Nu covered Yen Bing's mouth. You're so annoying. Don't say such inauspicious things. Before I master my skills, you're not allowed to eat anymore. Do you know how anxious I was when you suddenly fell ill the day before yesterday? You weren't willing to tell me the reason. No wonder you refused to see a doctor at that time. So it was actually because of me. Speaking to her, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Yen Bing lightly kissed Feng Nu's hand. Feng Nu retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. Her charming face flushed red, and she once again leaned into Yen Bing's embrace. Feng Nu, what did you mean when you said you're unwilling to leave me? Don't tell me you want to leave? Although he was hugging her incomparably intoxicating body, Yen Bing's heart was still very sober. Feng Nu's body trembled slightly and she said in a low voice, Yen Bing, I'm afraid I can't accompany you anymore. These days with you have been the happiest days of my life. But if I leave, I'm afraid the Feng people will already be in chaos. For my clansmen, I have to go back. Only by increasing my strength can I pass the test of the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. Yen Bing was silent. Although the two of them lived a simple life together, how could Yen Bing bear to let Feng Nu leave after getting used to this simple life? However, Feng Nu had her own goals and mission. Even if she was unwilling, Yen Bing didn't want Feng Nu to live in unhappiness and regret. She lightly kissed her forehead and said, "To be honest, I really can't bear to part with you. But I also know that I don't have the authority to not let you leave. After all, the Feng people raised you and you are indebted to them. Moreover, they are your clansmen. But can you promise me one thing? I hope that you can leave after my competition. Do you still remember that I have something to say to you before the Feng people came to find me a few days ago? After my competition, I will tell you some things. At that time, you can decide whether to leave or not, okay?" Of course, he couldn't let Feng Nu leave now. He still hadn't completed the task that Yurian asked him to do. But, in order not to affect Feng Nu's heart, he hoped to tell her a little later. Feng Nu didn't ask much. She just nodded lightly and said, "Okay, I promise you. But you have to promise me that no matter what, you have to prioritize your own safety." "Sister, what's going on today? How could you lose to that kid with your Gaia realm? You were really too careless," Mu Rong said to Mu Jing with some dissatisfaction. Mu Jing's eyes showed some confusion. She said, "There are no absolutes in this world. Brother, I really lost. Before coming here, I always thought that by relying on my innate realm, I could even contend against people like Prince Rong. But now it seems that I was wrong, very wrong. Don't tell me that you didn't notice how strong that Nian Bing who fought with me today was? His magic was the strangest one I have ever seen. If it wasn't for my innate realm, I wouldn't even have the chance to contend against him. To be able to control 5 types of magic, how strong must one's comprehension be? At least, in the history of magic, I have never heard of anyone who could use 5 types of magic. Especially the magic he used to break my Gaia realm. It fused the 2 extremes of ice and fire magic without losing the characteristics of the 2 types of magic. When it suddenly burst out, the magic power it produced was indeed close to the level of a 10th step magic. Mu Rong frowned and said, "But, relying on your innate realm, if you had attacked with all your strength from the start, he might not have had the chance to chant the incantation." Mu Jing sneered and said, "Then you are underestimating him too much. Don't you see what kind of magic items he used? 5 divine-level magic items, each of which was the best of its kind. With these items, he could easily chant the magic incantation. Just the short-distance teleportation of the space element alone was not something that could be easily countered. Although my Gaia realm is amazing, it has only been awakened for a short time. It is not enough to attack in a large area without any gap. Although I lost today, I discovered that this mage called Nian Bing has a limitless future. He is definitely more dangerous than Qianhuan Bingyun." Mu Rong stared blankly and said, "You mean to say that his strength is stronger than Qianhuan Bingyun?" Mu Jing frowned and said, "Brother, father has always been smarter than you. You are the crown prince, so how can you think of the problem so simply? That Nian Bing may not be Qianhuan Bingyun's opponent now, but with his potential, one day, his achievements will far surpass mine. Looking at his appearance, he is only about 20 years old. A 20-year-old mage who can use 5 types of magic. Think about it, in the history of the continent, who can do that? Even those humans who call themselves gods might not be able to do it. I dare say that even the priests of the ice goddess at his age don't have this kind of strength. Although Qianhuan Bingyun is very strong, part of her strength is based on the teachings and support of the priests of the ice goddess. However, can you tell whose disciple that Nian Bing is? From his imaginative attacks in the magic competition, it can be seen that he has a lot of experience in actual combat. If his current achievements are all based on his own comprehension, then that is too frightening." Mu Rong's eyes flashed with a cold light and said, "There are only 2 ways to deal with this kind of person. The first is to use him for your own use. He will definitely become a huge help. The second is to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, not giving him the opportunity to develop. Sister, do you think that this person can be used by us?" Mu Jing's eyes were somewhat blurred. "It's hard to say because I can't see through his heart. On the first day of the competition, he ruthlessly killed 2 people in a row. However, in today's competition, not only did he not kill me, he even used water and light magic to nourish my Gaia domain. If I relied on my own strength, I would need at least 3 days to recover from that kind of injury. Therefore, it's hard to say what kind of person he is now. Big brother, I won this time. You have already secretly dispatched people from the wooden assassin group. Let them prepare. Even if we can't buy him, as long as we can destroy him and get the treasures in his hands, it will be very beneficial for the future development of our Longmu Empire's magic world. Mu Rong's eyes showed a trace of a cold smile and said, "Do you still remember that day? The woman who was with him that day clearly has a special relationship with him. For a mage like him, there are only 3 possibilities that can attract his attention. The first is money and status, these are the least likely. The second is precious magic items, and the third is a peerless beauty. The latter 2 are more likely to succeed. We will try them one by one and see if we can alarm him. However, sister, you are wrong about one thing. That kid's magic blades are not that easy to take. If I am not wrong, the 2 blades he used to defeat you were inlaid with the Rong family's Fire God Stone and the Ice God Tower's Ice God Stone. These 2 treasures are very troublesome." Mu Jing faintly smiled and said, "I like troublesome things the most. If he is really unwilling to submit to us, we must do it secretly. At that time, who will know that we are the ones who made the move?" The 5 nations' new mage competition entered the 4th day. Today there would be 2 matches, Mu Rong against Rong Bing and Nian Bing against Rong Ji. There was no suspense in the battle between Mu Rong and Rong Bing. Rong Bing had already seen Mu Rong's usual attacking method. How could he give him a chance to use the nature domain? Although Rong Bing lost to Bing Yun in the same group, other than Qianhuan Bing Yun, he was the only one who had reached the magic shooter level. However, in the competition, Mu Rong's response was very clever. As soon as he found out that he was not Rong Bing's opponent, he immediately admitted defeat so that Rong Bing could not secretly hurt him. Standing on the competition stage, Nian Bing looked at Rong Ji in front of her and narrowed her eyes. Rong Ji gave her a very strange feeling. He was like a volcano that was about to erupt. On the surface, his aura was not as restrained as Rong Bing's. However, the aura that he released was filled with a domineering aura. Nian Bing knew. This battle was definitely not going to be easy for her. However, last night in Prince Rong's study, Prince Rong had passed on many insights into magic to him, as well as some special magic incantations. This had greatly increased Nian Bing's understanding of magic. Although he couldn't digest it all in a short period of time, he still benefited a lot with his intelligence. As the referee, Rong Fei was sizing up Nian Bing. He was very depressed. Yesterday, when he returned to the Rong residence, he discussed with his second brother, but before they could reach a conclusion, Prince Rong came back. Prince Rong gave a series of strange orders. Almost every order was targeted at Nian Bing. He also gave a strict order that if anyone dared to harm Nian Bing, they would immediately be punished according to the family law. In all these years, this was the first time that Rong Fei had seen his big brother so serious. He did not even intervene in the disputes between the 2 factions of the Rong family. However, this time, he directly gave an order that no one in the Rong family could disobey. Rong Fei announced the start of the battle. Rong Ji did not attack right away. Instead, he opened his mouth and said, "Hello, although I really want to fight with you, I'm stronger than you. I'm afraid I can't do that now. I admit defeat." After saying that, he confirmed with Rong Fei again, then turned around and walked down the stage. Rong Fei clearly knew what happened. Looking at Nian Bing, who was a bit stunned, he coughed and said, "Okay, contestant Rong Ji admits defeat and wins." When the officials of the Huarong Empire saw this result, they immediately went into an uproar. Emperor Huatian frowned and glanced at Prince Rong. Prince Rong looked at him calmly and nodded. At this time, The only one who did not change his expression was the Prime Minister, Su Yu. He looked at Prince Rong with a smile, and there was a hint of deep meaning in his eyes. The battle ended just like that. Nian Bing's last opponent in the group stage was the space magic caster. For someone like him who could also use space magic, the result of that battle was not suspenseful at all. The battle for the other spot in the finals would be held tomorrow. The battle between Mu Jing and Rong Ji. After leaving the palace, Nian Bing walked slowly on the streets of Dutian City. He was very clear that his victory today was not as simple as Rong Ji wanting to preserve his strength for tomorrow's battle. It was obvious that his grandfather, Prince Rong, had ordered him to admit defeat on purpose. He did not know what Emperor Hua Tian was thinking. After all, Rong Ji represented the Huarong Empire. "Can we talk?" A cold voice suddenly sounded. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. From what he could sense with his spiritual power, this voice was clearly directed at him. He turned around and saw Bing Yun standing not far behind him, her face covered by a white veil. Nian Bing's hatred surged when he saw the symbol of the Ice God Tower on her body. He forcefully suppressed the flames of hatred in his heart and said calmly, "If you're here for the Ice Goddess Stone, then there's nothing to talk about." Qianhuan Bingyun slowly walked to Nian Bing's side. "Not only that, I think that your current appearance is not your original appearance, Mr. Ice and Fire Chef." Nian Bing's heart trembled. "Ice and Fire Demon Chef? Who is that? I'm afraid you have the wrong person." Qianhuan Bingyun took out a small mirror from her chest. "This was given to me. It is called the Magic Mirror. No matter what kind of creature it is, this mirror can reflect the magic behind it. I think that this is not the first time we have met in Dutian City. Do you want me to invite the seventh prince over?" Nian Bing joked a little mockingly. As expected of someone who came from the stone quarry, not the Ice God Tower. "You have so many treasures. It seems that the Ice God Priestess has really taken you as her successor. Let's go sit there." As he spoke, he casually pointed to a nearby restaurant. It was not mealtime, so the restaurant was very quiet. The appearance of the two attracted the attention of the waiter as soon as they entered. "Sir, miss, would you like to eat?" the waiter asked politely. He stole a glance at Frozen Cloud, and immediately, he shuddered. He quickly retracted his gaze. "What a cold girl." Nian Bing smiled. "Let's just eat something and sit here." She pointed to a table near the window, and walked over with Qianhuan Bingyun. The waiter followed them to the table. "What would you like to eat?" Nian Bing gave Bingyun an inquiring look. Although he was the disciple of an enemy, he still had his manners. However, he still had the demeanor of a man. Frozen Cloud calmly said, "I'm not used to eating ordinary food. You can eat whatever you want." Nian Bing laughed self-deprecatingly. "Yes, you are a goddess. How can you be used to eating ordinary food? Waiter, what specialties do you have here? Give me 4 of them." The cold air around Bingyun's body had already made the waiter unable to stand it. No matter how beautiful a woman was, it was not as important as his own life. He agreed. He quickly ran down. Nian Bing leaned back in her chair and revealed a graceful smile. "Miss Qianhuan Bingyun, what do you want to talk about? You can say it now." "Ice and Fire Chef. I was recruited by the Empire but disappeared. I didn't expect to be here representing the Ice Moon Empire in the magician tournament. Should I think of you as a chef or a magician?" Nian Bing said indifferently. "That's up to you. However, there is one thing you have to understand. I am not representing the Ice Moon Empire. I am representing the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild. I have nothing to do with the Ice Moon Empire." Bing Yun said indifferently. "I can see that. You and that Rong Bingai look almost the same. It seems that you have a deep relationship with the Rong family. There is only one person who can possess both the Ice Goddess Stone and the Fire God Stone. However, he should have died 8 years ago." Nian Bing's eyes shone brightly. "Since you know so clearly, why do you need to talk to me?" People who should die may not really die. Bing Yun said, Then you are really the only son of Rong Tian and my senior sister? A few days ago, Master felt the aura of the Ice Goddess Stone. It was also released by you, right? Nian Bing sneered. So what if it is? Your guess is completely correct. If I remember correctly, the Ice Goddess Stone was given to my mother by the Ice Goddess priest. My mother gave it to me. If you want to go back, then you can take my corpse with you. Of course, you need to have the ability to do so. However, the Ice Goddess priest is really good to you. You don't look older than me, but you actually know about these things. The outside world says that you will inherit that old witch's mantle. It seems like they are not wrong. You are very confident. Do you believe that I will kill you right now? Bing Yun's voice became even colder. The surrounding air seemed to have frozen. Nian Bing said coldly, Confidence is based on strength. I think, if everything goes well, we will meet in the finals. Bing Yun said, I don't want your Ice Goddess Stone. I want you as a person. Nian Bing joked evilly. Sorry, I already have a master. Although I am very beautiful, I don't want some parts of my body to be frozen. You. Bing Yun's eyes revealed a rare trace of panic. She raised her hand and slapped Nian Bing. A sharp icicle appeared in front of Nian Bing like lightning. Nian Bing raised his hand and grabbed the icicle. At this time, the icicle was less than 3 inches away from his eyes. A faint burning breath was emitted from Nian Bing's body. The icicle melted into water and then evaporated into water vapor, as if it had never appeared. Can't wait? You want to make a move now? I will accompany you anytime. Nian Bing's voice also became cold. I hope you can show some respect. After all, you are also a magic shooter. Bing Yun said with some hatred. Nian Bing joked and looked at Bing Yun frivolously. Respect depends on who you use it on. Do you think I should have any respect for the people of Ice God Tower? In my eyes, most of the women of Ice God Tower are not even as good as prostitute. At least, prostitutes also have some feelings. Most prostitutes have no choice but to do so. But what about you? You are just a group of cold statues. If a person loses his feelings, can he still be a person? As long as it is something that is detrimental to the Ice God Tower, he will not hesitate to do it. Insulting is only the first step. Bing Yun suddenly stood up. The temperature in the entire restaurant dropped sharply. Insulting the Ice God Tower, just this point alone is enough for you to die 100 times. Nian Bing was still sitting in the same place. Is that so? I didn't say anything wrong, did I? Do you think you still have feelings? As far as I know, you have never known what feelings are. Otherwise, why would my parents die? Today, you came to find me was a mistake. Even if you know my identity, do you think you can threaten me? As for the enemy who harmed my parents, other than revenge, I don't think there is anything else to talk about. Your master, your Ice God Tower destroyed my happiness. I will return it to you 10 times, 100 times. I want the Ice God Tower to be erased from the face of the continent. As he spoke the last few words, he paused between each word, and suppressed hatred suddenly erupted from his eyes, as if he wanted to pierce through the illusory ice cloud in front of him. Unfortunately, a gaze could not kill. After hearing Nian Bing's words, Bing Yun calmed down. She slowly sat back in her seat and said, Do you think you can take revenge? No. Nian Bing replied quickly. With my current strength, if I want to take revenge, it will be like hitting a stone with an egg. However, now does not mean that it will be forever. What do you think? Bing Yun sneered. Do you think you have forever? Deny using any means. After this competition, I will take you back to the Ice God Tower. Master will deal with you. Nian Bing smiled and said, That's good. Do whatever you want. However, you have to consider the Rong family's power before saying this to me. After all, my surname is also Rong. At this time, the waiter had already served the dishes. Nian Bing picked up the chopsticks and put a piece of stewed beef into her mouth. The taste is not bad. It's just that the taste of the seasoning is a bit too strong. It doesn't reflect the freshness of the beef itself. However, in an ordinary restaurant, it's barely enough. Miss Bingyun, do you want to try it? Oh, right, I remember that the Ice God Tower is vegetarian, right? Bingyun's eyes were full of disgust. She impatiently looked at the dishes on the table and said, Are you relying on the Rong family's protection? That's useless. Because I believe you will choose to go back with me. Chapter 111. Nian Bing narrowed his eyes and looked at Bingyun. Why are you dreaming in the middle of the day? Of course, if you are willing to sleep with me, I can consider your proposal. However, you can only walk 1 meter at a time. I estimate that by the time we reach the Ice God Tower, you will already be 70 or 80 years old. Perhaps you will have given birth to a bunch of children for me, ha 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 ha. You! Bingyun raised her hand to slap Nian Bing's face. Nian Bing's eyes flashed coldly, and he grabbed her cold little hand. Do you think you are a warrior? Put away your claws. Saying this, he fiercely threw Bingyun's hand away. Qianhuan Bingyun had never been insulted like this in her life. Her full breasts were heaving up and down because of anger, but she did not make another move. You don't deserve to be called a noble magician. Are you proud of insulting me? Well, I will tell you one thing now. I think you will calm down a bit. Your parents are not dead. Nian Bing, who was continuing to eat, suddenly froze. The light in his eyes surged, and Qianhuan Bingyun could not help but tremble. He suddenly leaned over the table. What did you say? Bingyun looked coldly at Nian Bing and said, I said, your parents are not dead. In the battle that year, Master did not kill your parents. He only sealed them and imprisoned them. Of course, being sealed in ice, their situation can change at any time. As for where they are imprisoned, only Master and I know. Now, shouldn't you consider my proposal? Thump, thump, thump. Nian Bing's heart kept beating faster and faster. His handsome face was a little red because of excitement, and his heart was like a surging wave. His parents were not dead, and ecstasy kept invading his heart. Unconsciously, Nian Bing clenched his fists, and excitement replaced hatred. He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to rescue his parents from prison. He thought of his parents who had suffered in the Ice God Tower. Nian Bing's eyes couldn't help but turn red, and her clenched fists trembled slightly. Looking at the complex emotions in Nian Bing's eyes, Bingyun suddenly had a strange feeling. The man in front of her didn't seem as annoying as before. Now, shouldn't you decide to go to the Ice God Tower with me? Perhaps Master will let you see your parents one last time, Bingyun said coldly. Nian Bing looked at Bingyun strangely. You just said that only you and your master know where my parents are locked up, right? Bingyun suddenly felt that something was wrong, but she didn't know what was wrong. Yes, only my master and I know. Nian Bing nodded and said, All right. I understand now. I will go to the Ice God Tower. His expression returned to normal, and he picked up his chopsticks again, slowly eating the dishes on the table. Why was he so calm? Bingyun was a bit puzzled, and the way she looked at Nian Bing changed. Waiter, our young master is here. The private room upstairs is still open, right? A loud voice sounded, and more than 10 people walked in. It was obvious that most of them were followers, and they were escorting a young man in gorgeous clothes. Although the young man's appearance wasn't bad, his face was a bit pale, and his long golden hair and the golden lion emblem on his chest symbolized his noble status. The waiter bowed and greeted him. So it's the young prince. Come in, the private room has been reserved for you. Nian Bing lifted his head and glanced at the young man. He snorted disdainfully. Another little prince. What a joke, what a joke. Why are there so many shameless people in the world? Nian Bing's voice wasn't loud, but the young man's followers were obviously not ordinary people. Immediately, dozens of eyes shot towards their table, and a few of them walked over to Nian Bing's table. What a tasteful girl! The young man waved his hand, and his followers immediately stopped. He walked slowly to Nian Bing's table, and after glancing at Nian Bing, his eyes stopped on Bing Yun's face. Which dog was barking just now? Cut off your own tongue and I'll spare your life. Nian Bing lazily leaned against the back of the chair. Okay. If you're willing to cut off your own tongue, I'll really spare your life. The scum of the Rong family really needs to be cleaned up. The young man said coldly, since you're looking for death, don't blame me. Do it, leave him with one breath. With a flash, 2 followers came to Nian Bing's side like lightning, and pressed their hands on her shoulders. Suddenly, their vision blurred. Nian Bing, who had been sitting there, suddenly disappeared. When they looked up, they realized that Nian Bing was already standing beside the young man. She was even holding a strange-looking blade that flickered with silver light in one hand. Nian Bing's strong hand was strangling the young man's neck, and her eyes became abnormally cold. What are you doing? Because his neck was being strangled, the young man's voice was somewhat hoarse. Nian Bing laughed mischievously. Don't worry, I won't use the knife to kill you, and I won't use it to cut off your tongue, because I'm afraid your dirty blood will contaminate my knife. Tell your followers to behave. I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm a magician. If I want your life, it's as easy as flipping my hand. Don't come over. The young man was obviously very scared, and his body had already begun to tremble. His followers, who were secretly surrounding him, suddenly stopped. Bing Yun stood up, and didn't even look at the young man. Nian Bing said, Do you think it's interesting? I'll find you after the competition. After saying that, she turned around and walked outside. The young man's followers wanted to stop her, but in an instant miserable screams were heard, and an icicle appeared on each of the followers' shoulders. Nian Bing watched with some schadenfreude. These people were too arrogant to attack the people of the Ice God Tower. After Bing Yun left, Nian Bing looked at the young man in her hand with a smile and said, If I remember correctly, your name should be Rong Yao, right? Yes, you should be Rong Fei's eldest grandson, right? When Rong Yao heard Nian Bing mention his name, his aura immediately increased. Humph, since you know who I am, why don't you let me go? In this city, no one dares to offend the Rong family. Nian Bing smiled and said, So that's how it is. I'm really scared. Look, my hand is trembling. A silver light flashed in front of Rong Yao, as if it could fall at any time. Don't mess around. As long as you let me go, I won't make things difficult for you. Nian Bing snorted and said, Ever since you were young, it seems like you've never kept your word. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Wouldn't killing you dirty my hands? However, it seems that you've been drinking too much for the girls in the city. Let me give you a small punishment. 2 kinds of aura, one cold and one hot, rose at the same time. A clear magic aura surrounded Nian Bing and Rong Yao, making Rong Yao's followers even more afraid to move. With Nian Bing's magic control, it was easy for her to control the magic aura to deal with Rong Yao, who didn't even have the strength of a primary mage. Cold and hot attacked Rong Yao's body at the same time. He only felt that the lower half of his body was hot and cold, and his whole body kept trembling. A strange feeling kept rising, and unknowingly, he actually peed in his pants. Nian Bing's mocking voice sounded in his ears. How is it? The baptism of ice and fire is not bad, right? Don't worry, I said I won't kill you. However, have you ever heard of the word impotence? I'm afraid you'll have to start now. In the future, you'll lose the ability to be a man, ha 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 ha. With a flash of silver light, Nian Bing's body disappeared. Rong Yao's whole body went soft and fell to the ground. His followers didn't have time to chase after Nian Bing, and hurriedly helped Rong Yao up. Rong Yao's lips had already turned purple, and sweat kept oozing out of his forehead. Kill him for me. Nian Bing remembered Rong Yao's appearance very clearly. When they were young, he was the one who bullied Nian Bing the most. Rong Yao used the fact that he was the eldest grandson of Rong Fei to gather a group of juniors of the Rong family. Nian Bing remembered very clearly that one time, when Rong Bing went out to do something, Rong Yao brought a group of people to find him. Not only did Rong Bing beat him up, but he also urinated on him. Nian Bing remembered the humiliation at that time very clearly. Hatred gradually grew in her heart from then on. Although later when Rong Bing came back, he also beat up Rong Yao's group, but Nian Bing didn't forget the humiliation she once suffered. Today, when Rong Yao entered the door, he had already recognized Rong Yao from his appearance and the symbol on Rong Yao's body. How could he not take revenge? If it wasn't for Prince Rong's words that made him feel a lot of emotions, he probably would have killed him long ago. The new magician competition continued. Nian Bing and Bing Yun won the first place of the two groups without any suspense. Rong Bing won the second place of the first group, but Rong Ji lost to Mu Jing in the second group. Mu Jing used her innate domain right from the start of the competition against Rong Ji. Rong Ji was extremely depressed when he lost. The advantage of an innate domain was too obvious. In a situation where he couldn't use magic scrolls, it was almost impossible to compete with it. After all, how could an instant cast spell compare to an innate domain of the 8th level? Just like that, the 4 people who entered the finals were Nian Bing, Bing Yun, Rong Bing, and Mu Jing. The preliminaries were over, and the finals would only begin after 2 days of rest. Nian Bing would sneak into Prince Rong's mansion every night. He didn't even need to show the red jade lion that Prince Rong gave him. He could easily enter the mansion just by relying on his similar appearance to Rong Bing. Prince Rong's teaching was very strange. He didn't explain anything. He just told Nian Bing a lot of theoretical knowledge and asked him to memorize it. Although Nian Bing's memory was very good, Prince Rong gave him too much knowledge. It took a lot of effort for him to memorize every day, especially when it came to high-level magic spells of various elements. However, what made Nian Bing very excited was that there were even dark magic spells in Prince Rong's secret room. To him, these spells were very precious. Nian Bing didn't tell Prince Rong that his parents were still alive. After he went back that day, he calmly thought about it. He didn't completely believe Bing Yun's words. After all, this was only one side of her story. Nian Bing didn't dare to have too much hope. The higher the hope, the easier it was to be disappointed. However, Bing Yun's words made him excited. At least, the goal of the operation had changed. 2 days passed quickly, and the finals of the 5 Nations New Magicians competition finally began. Early in the morning, Nian Bing bade farewell to Feng Nu and went to the palace. The first competition was between him and Rong Bing. Under Prince Rong's arrangement, just like the battle with Rong Shi that day, Rong Bing didn't really fight with Nian Bing. Instead, he directly admitted defeat as soon as he came up, which surprised the other magicians. Other than Nian Bing and Rong Bing, no one understood the mystery behind it. Rong Fei announced that Nian Bing would be the champion of the finals. These few days, Rong Fei was very depressed, not only because of Prince Rong's order, but also because of what happened to his eldest grandson. He tried to investigate but couldn't find the person who crippled his grandson. The second round, Ice God Towers Bing Yun and Longmu Empire's Mu Jing, please come up to the stage. Bing Yun was still in her original attire with a white veil over her face. In the finals, the difference in strength had been reduced by a lot. Other than Nian Bing's opponent who admitted defeat, Bing Yun and Mu Jing's match was extremely crucial. If Bing Yun won, then the Ice Moon Empire would take the first 2 places. In so many competitions, this had never happened before. On the stage, Mu Jing looked at Bing Yun with a smile on her face. Admit defeat. Although your absolute magic power is very strong, you shouldn't be as good as Nian Bing in terms of transformations. Without using magic scrolls, you won't be able to compete with my domain. Even if I fight with Nian Bing again, I won't give her time to deal with my domain. I have at least a 70% chance of winning. I'm definitely going to be the champion of this competition. Bing Yun said coldly, you'll only know that after you fight. Don't underestimate your opponent. Although the innate domain is a symbol of strength, it doesn't represent everything. Mu Jing smiled indifferently and said, is that so? Go ahead and give it a try. Let the match begin. Rong Fei announced as he floated back to the side of the stage. 100 great magicians activated all of their magic power to form a powerful defensive barrier around the stage. The contestants who could enter the finals were all outstanding contestants, so they didn't dare to be careless. They were afraid that the defensive barrier would be destroyed by the battle between the two contestants and disturb Great Emperor Huatian. De Jing's eyes flashed with green light. His body floated up and a huge amount of life force surged out. The green color instantly covered the entire stage. It was the Gaia domain. Bingyun didn't move. She watched as the surging green color swallowed her whole. Her white magic robe fluttered without any wind, and the blue ice flower on her chest emitted a dazzling light. A layer of white light spread out from Frozen Cloud's body. The speed at which it spread wasn't fast, but wherever the white light passed, it instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. The temperature plummeted. When the large expanse of green met with the white light, it unexpectedly couldn't penetrate the slightest bit. The lush green plants were covered in a layer of frost. The spreading momentum came to a screeching halt. Not only that, it even showed signs of withering. No, this is impossible. Mu Jing, who was hiding in the green, exclaimed. Bingyun said indifferently, Nothing is impossible. Are you the only one who can have an innate domain? I think you just became intoxicated with it not long ago. Similarly, I also became intoxicated with it. My domain was something that I had just been immersed in before coming here. The goddess of earth domain that could devour all natural energy couldn't possibly devour my goddess of ice domain that could freeze everything. The deathly stillness in the world of ice and snow is the nemesis of your life force. Now, do you still think I should admit defeat? The appearance of the ice goddess domain shocked everyone present. No one would have thought that Bingyun, who was already so strong, would have such a powerful innate domain. Nian Bing's body turned cold. His eyes flashed. He wasn't afraid of anything. The competition on the stage was no longer important to him. The outcome was already clear. He was thinking about how to deal with Bingyun's innate domain and Thousand Illusion domain. To him, it was almost impossible to win. With the Ice Goddess domain, Qianhuan Bingyun's strength had risen to the level of an archmage. Ice God Tower, it was indeed an incomparably powerful existence. Just the disciple of the Ice Goddess priest had reached such a level. Prince Rong also frowned. He exchanged glances with Su Yu beside him. His eyes flickered, as if he was thinking about something. The competition on the stage entered a stalemate because of the appearance of the Ice Goddess domain. Mu Jing tried her best to urge her Gaia domain, wanting to devour the ice energy in the Ice Goddess domain. However, ice was an extreme energy. Under the influence of the domain, it had already surpassed the scope of natural magic. No matter how she urged it, she couldn't stop her Gaia domain from shrinking under the pressure. Mu Jing was at a loss. Ever since she became intoxicated with the Ice Goddess domain, she had always thought that she was blessed by nature. However, facing Qianhuan Bingyun, she felt so powerless. A small magic staff appeared in Bingyun's hand. It seemed that controlling the innate domain didn't consume too much of her energy. Her cadence of incantation clearly spread throughout the entire arena. Great ice element. Condense, become the ice of the ancient cold river, become the ice of the solidified moonlight. The fusion of ice and ice, appear, dual-colored ice sphere. Blue dots of light quickly condensed in the Ice Goddess domain. What made everyone surprised was that this was originally a single-target attack magic incantation. It actually mutated. Dots of blue light. 10 dual-colored ice spheres were arranged in a neat row in front of Bingyun. Although the volume of the ice spheres was half of the size of a single ice sphere, they were still 10 dual-colored ice spheres. Bingyun raised her hand and pointed her magic staff forward. The ice spheres in the air rapidly rolled like a grinder. Wherever they passed, the previously frozen plants were all turned into fine powder. The 10 dual-colored ice spheres formed a semicircle and rolled towards Mu Jing, who was hidden in the Gaia domain. Flower of life, I allow you in the name of nature. Release the aura of nature, devour all external forces, transform them into endless life and nourish nature. After a short moment of absent-mindedness, Mu Jing immediately launched a counterattack unwillingly. Although the Ice Goddess domain had a certain suppressive effect on her Gaia domain, it was not easy to break the Gaia domain. Little yellow flowers floated out of the Gaia domain under the amplification effect of the domain. They grew rapidly, and soon there were dozens of sunflowers. Gentle yellow light was released from the sunflowers, intertwining into a yellow light net full of life energy that enveloped the 10 two-colored ice balls. Bingyun frowned slightly and said, "You still don't understand? Without the advantage of the domain, how can you be my opponent?" With a light wave of the magic staff in her hand, the 10 dual-colored ice spheres suddenly changed. They were originally parallel to each other, but they suddenly changed into a straight line and rushed towards the light net. The first ice sphere disappeared under the effect of the yellow light net and turned into water elements to nourish the Gaia domain. The second ice sphere disappeared right after, and the Gaia domain was once again nourished. However, the light net shot by the sunflowers had already begun to fluctuate. The dual-colored ice spheres were extremely powerful. When the fifth one was destroyed, the light shot by the sunflowers could no longer resist the impact of the ice spheres. The remaining 5 ice spheres rushed into the Gaia domain and violently exploded. In the instant of the explosion, countless ice shards flew up. The Ice Goddess domain instantly invaded, causing the Gaia domain that was destroyed by the dual-colored ice spheres to be unable to recover. At this time, 4/5 of the entire area of the competition stage was already occupied by the Ice Goddess domain. With the chanting of an incantation, another 10 dual-colored ice spheres appeared around Qianhuan Bingyun, but she did not immediately attack. Your Gaia domain is also a top-notch domain. It has the effects of attack, defense, and amplification. If your magic power was at the same level as mine and we were in the wild, I'm afraid the one who would lose would be me. Unfortunately, there is still a big gap between you and me. Admit defeat. Do you really want me to destroy your domain and injure your vitality? Silence. Mu Jing was unwilling to accept this. However, she understood that in the current situation, her domain was suppressed, and her magic power was inferior to her opponent's. Unless a miracle happened, there was no chance for her to win. At this time, she yearned for the prize of this competition even more. If she had the longevity sword in her hand, how could she lose? With the breath of life on the sword, everything would be possible. The competition ended when she admitted defeat. Qianhuan Bingyun once again displayed her powerful strength in front of everyone. No one would have thought that her magic power would reach such a high level at the age of 20. The situation was very clear. Even if Nian Bing did not go through 2 important competitions, no one thought that he could win against Bingyun, who had an innate domain. Walking out of the palace, Mu Jing lowered her head and pondered. Mu Rong beside her said in a low voice, "Sister, don't think too much. This loss is not your fault. Losing to someone from the Ice God Tower is not shameful. After all, they represented the highest level of magic in the continent. As long as you work hard, your future achievements may not be inferior to that of Bingyun's." Mu Jing raised her head and looked at her brother. She said, "Do you think I'm thinking about today's competition? Actually, I already knew that this Bingyun was not that simple. I already succeeded in forcing her to use her innate domain. An exposed opponent is always easier to deal with than an unfathomable opponent. Brother, are our people ready yet?" Mu Rong nodded and said, "They are ready. They are waiting for our orders at any time." Mu Jing sneered and said, "Good, as long as our information is not wrong after this competition, there should be a good show to watch. Qianhuan Bingyun must die, and if that Nian Bing is not willing to surrender, he will also die." Our Longmu Empire has endured for so many years, it is time for us to make a move. Mu Rong smiled and said, Sister, do you know? I am really glad that you are not a man. Otherwise, how could the position of the crown prince be mine? Mu Jing glanced at him and said, What's the point of saying these things now? Don't worry, I will wholeheartedly assist you in inheriting father's throne. But, don't forget what you promised me. Mu Rong said seriously, Of course I won't forget. That is my promise to you. Moreover, what I promised you is so beneficial to our Longmu Empire, how can I go back on my word? I am not father, unlike him who only knows how to defend the city. We only have one goal. As he said this, he raised his right hand. Mu Jing also reached out her right hand to shake his. 2 words echoed in their minds at the same time, unify the continent. 2 days passed, and night fell again. Nian Bing, wearing a magic robe with a golden lion symbol, walked into Prince Rong's residence. It was not the first time he came here, and he walked towards the study with a faint smile on his face. It seemed that he was in a good mood, and he was not scared by the strength that Qianhuan Bingyun showed during the day. He pushed open the door and entered. The study was brightly lit. In the past few days, Prince Rong had ordered that no one from the Rong family was allowed to enter the study without his permission. His teaching of magic was not to be disturbed. You're here. An old voice sounded. Prince Rong was wearing casual clothes and was reading a magic book. Nian Bing walked in front of Prince Rong and said, You don't look too good. Prince Rong closed the book and said, Do you think I should look good? I spent a lot of effort to obtain that longevity blade. What a pity. Nian Bing smiled and said, You don't have confidence in me? Prince Rong smiled and said, Should I have confidence in you? The innate ice goddess domain and the acquired thousand illusions domain. Even I would have to spend a lot of effort to win without using magic scrolls, let alone you. After all, magic incantations have always been an important factor in restricting mages. An expert in both magic and martial arts is more suitable to deal with a domain like hers. I've thought of many ways to deal with her in the past 2 days, but the chances of success are very small. Magic cultivation is not something that can be done overnight. Unless you have the 11th magnetic deflection meter today, you don't even have a 10% chance of success. If this girl named Bing Yun continues to develop from the bottom up, the Ice God Tower will have another God's Descent Master in less than 30 years. You saw her domain. It's even stronger than Goddess Gaia's domain. Even in today's competition, she might not have used her full strength. Then let's make a bet. Nian Bing smiled and looked at Prince Rong. A bet? Are you sure you can win? Originally, I was very confident in your magic fusion. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken out the longevity blade. However, Bing Yun is no less experienced than you in actual combat. She won't give you a chance to show off. Even if you can take advantage of your magic fusion, you might not win. What's there to bet? Prince Rong looked at Nian Bing in surprise. Nian Bing said, It's too early to say these things, but it's not like we don't have a chance. Let's bet on the outcome between Bing Yun and me. If I win, you have to promise me one thing. If I lose, I'll promise you one thing unconditionally. What do you think? Prince Rong's eyes shone faintly. Kid, I've eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. Trying to provoke me like this won't work. However, I can't think of any way you can do it. After a few days of interaction and Prince Rong's unreserved teaching, the atmosphere between Nian Bing and her grandfather had become much more relaxed. So, are you going to bet or not? A longevity blade in exchange for a condition. It's not a loss for you. Don't worry, what I want has nothing to do with the Rong family. It's only about you. I don't have any extravagant hopes for power. Prince Rong smiled. Okay, I'll bet with you. Tell me, what condition do you want me to agree to? Nian Bing's eyes flashed as he said, What's the point of talking about conditions before we win? Let's talk about it after I win. Prince Rong said, You seem to be very confident. I want to know how you're going to deal with her innate domain. Nian Bing chuckled. She moved closer to Prince Rong and whispered something in his ear. Prince Rong was obviously shocked. He looked at Nian Bing in surprise. You can do that? You're so despicable. Nian Bing smiled evilly. Didn't I inherit your good genes? Since when am I like you? You're so cunning. However, this method is not impossible. At least you have a 50% chance of winning. Your father is much better than you. Honest? I've been following my father around the continent since I was young. Later on, I traveled the continent by myself. If I'm not cunning, how can I survive? Prince Rong sighed and said, Okay, tell me your condition. Even if you lose, I'll agree to it. Nian Bing was stunned. Grandpa, are you pitying me? Training outside is not a bad thing. When I agreed to your condition that day, I let go of everything. My condition is very simple. Please don't go to the Ice Moon Empire. Prince Rong was stunned. Don't go? Are you afraid that I'll die in the hands of that old woman? Nian Bing shook his head and said, No, as a son, it's my duty to avenge my parents. You've been on the battlefield for a long time. It's time for you to rest. Leave this to me. Although Nian Bing spoke very calmly, his eyes were filled with determination. This was a display of confidence. Prince Rong looked deeply at Nian Bing. Good. You've really grown up. If Rong Tian was still alive, he would be very happy to see his son so outstanding. Do your best to fight for it. It doesn't matter even if you lose in the end. He didn't tell Nian Bing how much effort he had put in to help him become the champion this time. Just persuading Emperor Hua Tian took a lot of effort. He promised Emperor Hua Tian that Nian Bing would be his successor and become the protector of the Huarong Empire. Only then did Hua Tian agree to let Rong Bing take the initiative to admit defeat. Chapter 112. Nian Bing's eyes revealed deep emotions. I hope that is the case. Grandfather, I need to prepare for tomorrow's competition, please protect me. It was already late at night. Nian Bing quietly returned to the inn. Feng Nu was still awake, waiting for his return. Silly girl, didn't I tell you to sleep first? It's already so late. Nian Bing looked at Feng Nu with some blame. Feng Nu smiled. I can't sleep if you don't come back, so I might as well train for a while. For people like us, it doesn't matter if we sleep or not. Nian Bing reached out and pulled Feng Nu into his embrace, whispering, After tomorrow's competition ends, we will leave here early in the morning of the day after tomorrow. Feng Nu's eyes dimmed. After the competition ends, I should return to the Feng people. Nian Bing shook his head. It's still too early to talk about this. After the competition ends, we will have a good talk. At that time, you can make your decision. Feng Nu faintly felt uneasy, whispering, Nian Bing, I don't know why, but these days, I always feel like someone is watching us. Nian Bing smiled. You are overthinking, it should be the people my brother sent to protect us. The Phoenix Maiden shook her head and said, No, I can clearly feel the people sent by your brother. However, it is as if there is a pair of eyes in the sky watching us. I can faintly feel it, but I can't grasp it. Nian Bing was stunned. Don't overthink, we will leave here the day after tomorrow. Maybe the people you feel are the experts my brother sent. You also saw that day, the people protecting Inua were actually 2 swordsmen. The Huarong Empire is the strongest country in the continent, and the Rong family is the strongest family in the Huarong Empire. The people they sent naturally have some ability. I hope so. I don't know how Elder Feng Kong and my clansmen are doing. It's late, sleep early. Feng Nu, tomorrow is the finals. I want to hug you to sleep tonight, is that okay? Don't worry. I won't do anything improper. Feng Nu blushed and nodded gently. As they were about to leave, she really couldn't bear to reject Nian Bing's request. Nian Bing cheered. He picked up the Phoenix girl and carefully placed her on the bed. He quickly took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. He hugged her supple body, and her alluring fragrance wafted into his nose. He was filled with satisfaction. At this very moment, Nian Bing did not have a single strand of distracting thoughts. Feng Nu was completely his. As long as he hugged her like this, it would be enough. At first, Feng Nu was still a little flustered. She was a little afraid in her heart, but she was also looking forward to it. As Nian Bing's light snoring gradually sounded, she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She raised her head and looked at the man hugging her. She clearly felt that the warm embrace was so real. These days, Nian Bing's love for her made her fully understand the magic of love. Whenever she thought of leaving, her heart would ache inexplicably. She hugged Nian Bing tightly. She kissed him lightly on the lips. With all kinds of complicated emotions, Feng Nu gradually fell asleep. The finals of the Five Nations New Magician competition had finally begun. Today was the day of the final battle, and the two finalists were both representatives of the Ice Moon Empire. Standing on the competition stage, Nian Bing clearly felt that the atmosphere on the stage today was a little heavy. In front of him, Bing Yun was looking at him with a cold gaze. At your age, you're already very strong. Unfortunately, without an innate domain, it's impossible for you to contend against me. Bing Yun said indifferently. Nian Bing nodded in agreement and said, Indeed, I can't compare to your innate domain. In terms of overall strength, you are much stronger than me. Bing Yun's eyes flashed. Since you know the result, why do you have to make a move? After all, we are both from the Ice Moon Empire. Even if we are not representing our country, we can save some energy. The way back may not be peaceful. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, We'll talk about the journey back tomorrow. You want me to admit defeat? Sure, as long as you tell me where my parents are locked in the Ice God Tower and draw a detailed map for me, I will admit defeat immediately. Bing Yun frowned and said, Are you dreaming? If that's the case, then I can only defeat you. Rong Fei said from the side, Today is the finals. The rules are still the same. No magic scrolls are allowed. The competition begins. Wait a moment. Nian Bing said. Rong Fei stared blankly and said, What else do you want? Nian Bing said, You are the referee, but I hope that you will not be on the competition stage. Otherwise, it will be bad if you are accidentally injured. Rong Fei's eyes flashed with anger. If you can injure me, then I am not fit to be the referee of this competition. TSK. After saying that, he retreated to the edge of the competition stage. Nian Bing's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. He had already reminded Rong Fei. If he was unwilling to go down, then it was his business. An icy aura was emitted from Qianhuan Bingyun's body. A white halo floated up and attacked in all directions. She did not underestimate Nian Bing in the slightest, especially after seeing his powerful ice and fire magic. Therefore, she used her ice goddess domain from the start. Nian Bing's face revealed a dignified expression. Suddenly, he did something that shocked everyone present. He took off his clothes. After the red magic robe was taken off, he was only left with a white inner garment. Bing Yun saw Nian Bing suddenly take off his clothes, and a trace of panic appeared in her eyes. She could not help but slow down the release of her innate domain. Nian Bing laughed mischievously. The magic robe he took off floated on the ground. He waved his left hand, and red and blue lights flashed at the same time. The sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god flew out at the same time, nailing the magic robe to the ground. The lights flashed again. Gold, silver, black and green lights respectively fell around the magic robe. Ice, you are the representation of cold. Fire, you are the source of heat. The auras of ice and fire, please allow me to fuse your characteristics, with your common source as a guide, resonate. The stone of ice goddess and the stone of fire god simultaneously emitted a dazzling light. Golden lines actually appeared on the magic robe that was nailed to the ground. It was a magic array, an extremely complex magic array. The magic array seemed to have come to life. In the center of the array, a mass of red and blue light intertwined with each other rose up. The light constantly flickered. Suddenly, the surrounding world seemed to change. The red and blue disappeared at the same time. Everything became dim. Bingyun's body suddenly shook. The innate domain that was originally released was instantly weakened. The white halo disappeared without warning. The veil on her face slightly rippled. Her body suddenly went limp, and her eyes revealed a blank expression. She did not know what had happened. Nian Bing was clearly prepared. His body swayed. When the two blades flew out, he immediately sat cross-legged on the ground. His brows were tightly knitted, but his situation was much better than Bingyun's. The most unlucky person was Rong Fei. He did not listen to Nian Bing's warning. He was still on the competition stage. He also fell to the ground, and his eyes revealed a painful expression. The magic array on the ground had already turned into a faint purple color. Every magic symbol was slowly revolving around the magic array. The world in the eyes of Nian Bing and Bingyun was completely purple. Everything was so real, yet so illusory. Nian Bing panted slightly as large droplets of sweat dripped down his face. Even though he was in extreme pain, there was an excited smile on his face. He had experienced the same situation before, so he wasn't surprised. He calmed himself down. He calmly looked at Bingyun, who was not far in front of him. What did you do?" Bingyun struggled to sit up. However, no matter how hard she tried, her spiritual energy was completely drained. Nian Bing took a deep breath. He had already gotten used to the feeling of losing his spiritual energy. "It seems that I made the right bet. Although the Kane territory is strong, it can only be released with spiritual energy. Without spiritual energy, your Kane territory will naturally lose its ability. Our magical energy is not far apart. Now that you have lost your spiritual energy, I'm afraid you can't use your Thousand Illusions territory. We are standing on the same starting line. If we want to obtain the final victory, it will depend on each other's abilities. It will not be easy to defeat the opponent without hurting yourself." The dizziness in her mind continuously stimulated Frozen Cloud. At this moment, her consciousness was blurry. Ever since she started practicing magic, this was the first time she had experienced such a situation. For a magician, without spiritual force, it was equivalent to not having the hand to control a sword. Although her magic was powerful, if she wanted to defeat her opponent, she could only use a large area of effect spell. Nian Bing glanced at the fire cloud cover surrounding the competition stage. The cultivation of 100 great magicians was indeed strong. The area of effect of her forbidden spell should have been larger than the competition stage, but it was forcibly suppressed by the fire cloud cover. Nian Bing did not attack Bingyun. Instead, he walked step by step to Rong Fei's side, lifted his leg, and kicked him off the stage. One had to know that in this forbidden magic formation, the stronger the spiritual energy, the more painful it would be to be drained. This was also why Nian Bing was able to defeat Hillard with this magic formation. At this time, Rong Fei was still immersed in pain. Bingyun stood up with difficulty. Her body was a little shaky. She wanted to summon the magic treasure in her spatial item, but without spiritual energy, she could not even summon the simplest item. Nian Bing smiled and said, "What's wrong? Are you not used to it? Don't try to be brave. If I were you, I would admit defeat now. When I used the magic formation, I took out my strongest magic sword. With them, I can build a strong defense system and cast a large area attack magic. It is impossible for me to hurt myself. As for you, I'm afraid you won't be so lucky." Bingyun looked coldly at Nian Bing. Despicable. In a fair competition, you actually used this kind of method to achieve your goal. Even if you win, it is not a big deal. Nian Bing laughed and said, "I only pursue the result, not the process. Is this a fair competition? A magician with a domain of creation against a magician without a domain, is this a fair competition? So what if I'm despicable? In order to survive, I'm willing to use any means. Besides, no matter how despicable I am, I didn't break the rules of the competition. I didn't use a scroll. This is just my clothes. You can think of it as a magic item. Isn't your ice god tower a synonym for despicable? Otherwise, why would you use my parents' lives to threaten me? Qianhuan Bingyun, frankly speaking, in terms of individual strength, you are indeed above me. However, if this is not a competition, you may not be able to defeat me. I have at least a 70% chance of defeating you. Bingyun sneered and said, "What's the use of saying this now? This is our first battle, but it will not be the last. Do you think I can't defeat you without a magic staff? Eternal ice. Please allow me to call upon your breath, call upon your tenacity, your coldness, your pride, and transform it into an eternal ice wall, blocking all evil attacks. Ice barrier. An icy blue color condensed in the spell. Although there was no spiritual power to control it, the magic still displayed its original power. The blue light rose from the ground and actually separated the entire competition stage. The surrounding area was connected with the fire cloud cover, forming a huge ice wall. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Miss Bingyun, you must remember that the magic array I am using is called Eternal Sleep." Bingyun did not say anything. She quickly began to chant the spell. Without the advantage of the innate domain, she could only rely on offensive magic to defeat Nian Bing. Whisper of the Wind of Freedom. 6 lights of divine changes. Dawn piercing through heaven and earth. Eternal hell's curse. Darkness, light, space, wind, under the effects of curse, change, divine, and haste, release your breath in the foundation of the ice and fire elements. Green, silver, white, and black lights were released at the same time. The cheers of the magic elements could almost be heard on the competition stage. This was the effect of the top-grade gems. The Proud Heaven Blade, the 4 Stars Blade, the Holy Radiance Blade, and the Demon-Devouring Blade surrounded the Eternal Sleep magic array. With the help of the ice and fire elements in the magic array, they released a layer of dense 4-colored light barrier, enveloping Nian Bing. A snowstorm appeared outside the ice barrier. The temperature on the competition stage kept dropping. The blade-like snowflakes were like tiny blades under the influence of the wind, constantly cutting every corner of the competition stage. The ice barrier was constantly emitting sizzling sounds due to the cutting of the snowflakes. Nian Bing looked at the dancing snowflakes and smiled. He was very clear that Bingyun was known as the Thousand Illusions because she used her powerful spiritual power to control the ice magic to create countless magical forms. The reason why she chose the Eternal Sleep magic array was because without the support of spiritual power, she had lost the ability to change her magic. However, this was not the case for himself. His spiritual power was also powerful, and in terms of magic transformations, it was not inferior to Bingyun's. However, his magic transformations did not only rely on his spiritual power, but more importantly, it was his mimicry magic. Even if he did not use his spiritual power to control it, he could rely on the transformations of various magical elements to produce a strange power. Back then, after the battle with Hillard, Nian Bing had been researching how to unleash his strength while in eternal sleep. During his continuous exploration and cultivation, he finally found a way. Although this method couldn't allow him to recover his mental strength, at least his attacks wouldn't backfire on him. That was the Mimicry 4 Elements hub magic array in front of him. The clothes that he threw out not only had an eternal sleep magic array, but there were also some auxiliary magic arrays drawn on the edges of the clothes. The biggest feature of these magic arrays was that they drew upon the power of darkness, light, space, and wind to form a super auxiliary enchantment. Within the enchantment, it was much easier for Nian Bing to use the 4 types of magic. Furthermore, when his magic came into contact with the energy range of the Mimicry 4 Elements hub magic array, it would naturally disappear. In the Eternal Sleep magic array, this was undoubtedly an excellent enchantment. Endless darkness turns into endless curses, corrodes everything in the world, decomposes everything in the world, release your destructive demonic palms and fill the heavens and the earth. Corrosive mist. This was a spell that Nian Bing had just obtained not long ago, and it was a good opportunity to test it out. The radiance of the 4 elements hub magic array suddenly dimmed. Under the control of the magic array at the edge of the magic robe, the 4 types of magical elements underwent a wonderful change. The aura of light converged to the innermost layer, and what connected with the light was silver. Twice it was green wind, and the outermost layer was dark. It was because of the release of darkness that the entire magic array looked much dimmer. The snowstorm had arrived. The black mist rose at the same time. When the clean snowstorm came into contact with the black mist, in an instant, there was a loud puffing sound. The snowflakes disappeared in an instant as the black mist spread. Nian Bing kept urging his own magic power to strengthen the effect of the corrosive mist. This kind of large-scale corrosive mist was very suitable for fighting against large areas of snowflakes. It was even more useful than cannon magic. In the stands, Emperor Hua Tian's eyes lit up. He wasn't displeased by Nian Bing's use of dark magic. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face. His gaze met with Prince Rong's, and he nodded slightly. Prince Rong smiled indifferently. He knew that Emperor Hua Tian had now truly accepted Nian Bing. The snowflakes disappeared, and the entire stage was filled with a surging fog. Unfortunately, although the corrosive mist was powerful, it couldn't break through the ice barrier. The ice barrier emitted unpleasant sounds under the effect of the corrosive mist, but only a few honeycomb-like traces appeared on it. The degree of corrosion was far from enough to break through this defensive spell of the 8th step. Just as Bing Yun was changing to another incantation, Nian Bing's magic came one after another. With the help of the 4 elemental core formation, his casting speed was astonishing. When chanting, he didn't need that special intonation anymore. The amplification of the formation allowed him to become one with the 4 element. When the black mist gradually faded, Bing Yun could see through the ice barrier and see the situation on Nian Bing's side. However, he was shocked to find that countless wind blades were flying towards him. The sound of cutting and shattering could be heard continuously. Ice powder flew everywhere, and clouds of mist burst out. The ice barrier was no longer as sturdy as it was before. At the same time, a ball of golden light suddenly appeared. Countless golden dots of light began to condense on the stage. It looked like the next round of attacks was about to arrive. Nian Bing's previous 2 spells were only of the 6th step, but their power lay in their speed. First, it was the dark corrosion, then the wind's baptism, and finally the light's illumination. Once it came, the ice barrier couldn't resist the impact of the dark and light element. Frozen clouds spat out a mouthful of blood, dyeing her veil red. The blue ice flower in front of her chest suddenly shone brightly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with endless ice. She resisted the weakness of her mental strength and took a step forward. Immediately after, her movements became faster. Step after step, her figure gracefully danced. She actually danced behind the ice barrier. With every step she took, she would let out a pleasant melody. It was as if she was playing a musical accompaniment, setting off her exceptional beauty. It was as if a proud plum blossom had been placed in a world of ice and snow. Countless dots of light descended. The golden light quietly fell on the ice barrier. Immediately after, in the dazzling golden light, the ice barrier suddenly turned into a large cloud of ice fog and disappeared. As soon as the ice fog disappeared, Bing Yun actually passed through the ice fog and floated out. At this time, Nian Bing was finally able to see her graceful dance. Circles of faint blue light rose up around her body like flames. Although her every step seemed to be a bit unsteady, when connected together, it was still very moving. Nian Bing wasn't in the mood to appreciate this. Seeing the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but shiver. The Ice God Tower's secret technique was definitely not simple. He didn't dare to be careless and immediately released the next spell. A silver light appeared at the outermost part of the four elements core formation. Under the influence of the faint silver light, it gradually became distorted. Although Nian Bing's four elements core formation was quite powerful, in a situation where he didn't have any mental strength, he could only use a large area attack spell that consumed a lot of mana to ensure that he could hit his opponent. Moreover, because these four spells were mimicry spells, and now that he had to produce a defensive ability to protect Nian Bing, he could only use a rank 6 large area attack spell. Otherwise, if he could use a stronger spell, he would have done it long ago. The spatial distortions became more and more intense. It was as if time and space had frozen. Frozen Cloud's figure in the distorted space had already become unreal. Some parts of her body instantly expanded, some parts contracted, and some parts even sucked out all the air. This spatial magic's might was extremely great. However, due to its limitations, there weren't many people who used it. The shattered space formed countless formless, shredding blades that sliced at Frozen Cloud's body. The distorted light caused the spectators below the stage to be secretly shocked. Nian Bing didn't seem to have used up too much mana after using 4 Tier 6 AoE spells in succession. Furthermore, the spectators below the stage didn't even know how powerful Eternal Sleep was. Although this restriction spell formation wasn't as effective against normal magicians as it was against mental strength magicians, the feeling of having one's mental strength suddenly drained was not something that normal people could endure. If it was a magician with weaker willpower, they would have fainted long ago. Meanwhile, Bing Yun and Nian Bing were still fighting. When the distorted space came into contact with the blue flames on Bing Yun's body, it seemed to shrink a little. It only slowed down her movements a little, but it couldn't stop her movements. Bing Yun's speed was very slow, but Nian Bing had already discovered the problem. This was because the Bing Yun in front of her was getting bigger and bigger, and she was moving in the direction of her own movement. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that she knows martial arts? She wants to defeat me in close combat? No, that's impossible. This was a competition. If she used martial arts, it would be equivalent to admitting defeat. Moreover, how could a disciple of the Ice God Tower have martial arts? Just as Nian Bing was pondering, Bing Yun's movement speed suddenly increased. The blue flames seemed to have merged with her skin in an instant. Her figure was like a sharp sword, breaking through the distorted space. She was a blur behind her, and in the blink of an eye, she had already rushed in front of Nian Bing. The blue flames appeared in an instant, and Bing Yun's eyes were filled with fatigue. At this moment, Nian Bing suddenly understood. How could Bing Yun know any martial arts? The attack just now was clearly a type of magic application. Her goal was very simple, which was to destroy the eternal sleeping magic array in front of her. The 4 elemental core magic array that he released could only reduce the power of his own magic, but it didn't have any effect on external attack. Furthermore, Bing Yun's sudden attack disturbed Nian Bing's mind. It was too late to release magic now. If Bing Yun destroyed his magic array, once her innate domain was released, he wouldn't be able to resist, as his spiritual power hadn't recovered yet. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Nian Bing's mind like lightning. He didn't hesitate to rush out. At this moment, the blue flames on Bing Yun's body had already rushed to the front of the magic array. A fiery red aura was instantly released from Nian Bing's body. The scorching flames surrounded his body, and with a big stride, he rushed into the flames with the advantage of his body. In an instant, Nian Bing and Bing Yun shook at the same time. They were burning the magic in their bodies, and the pain caused by the ice and fire made them tremble at the same time. Under the effect of inertia, Nian Bing had already rushed through the blue flames. The flames around his body and the ice flames disappeared at the same time, but the strong light caused the two of them to temporarily lose their vision. Nian Bing originally wanted to punch Bing Yun with his right fist, but the pain from his body made him lose his balance. He subconsciously changed his fist into a palm, wanting to grab something to stabilize his body. Bing Yun's injury from Nian Bing's attack was much greater than Nian Bing's. After all, Nian Bing was a magician with the same origin of ice and fire, so he had a strong resistance to ice. However, Bing Yun didn't have this ability. At this moment, the strong dizziness and the pain in her body made her spit out a mouthful of blood. Just when she was in a daze, she suddenly felt a scorching thing hit her. Her chest tightened, and a strange heat rushed into her body from the embarrassing part. Bing Yun's body went soft, and under the effect of the impact, she suddenly fell back. Nian Bing changed his fist into a palm, and his subconscious action really caught something. He grabbed something full of elasticity. He wanted to grab it to stabilize his body, but he found that the thing also fell back, and his body tilted forward. He subconsciously stretched out his other hand and grabbed something full of elasticity. He twisted his body, trying to stabilize himself, but he didn't expect that he became a cushion. With a bang, a strong shock came from his back, followed by a heavy object pressing down on his body. Especially the two elastic softness, they were tightly in contact with his hand. A fragrance like orchids came to his nose, and the leisurely fragrance and cold breath suddenly Ling Nian Bing's mind cleared. He subconsciously grabbed the two soft lumps again, but when he heard a moving moan, he was shocked. His vision finally recovered. Nian Bing and Bing Yun were in an extremely ambiguous position. Nian Bing was lying flat on the competition stage, and Bing Yun was on top of him. Nian Bing's hands were grabbing the towering peaks on Bing Yun's chest. Both of them were stunned. How could they have imagined such a scene? Everything happened very quickly, and with the strong light shining, no one knew what had happened except for themselves. The smile on Bing Yun's face had disappeared, and her long blue hair that was originally hanging to the ground floated down like a waterfall, covering her and Nian Bing's bodies. Their eyes met, and Nian Bing's heart beat violently. Bing Yun's face was only an inch away from his, and her beautiful face was filled with surprise. Bing Yun's beauty was a cold beauty. Among all the women that Nian Bing had seen, only Feng Nu and Yu Ruyan could barely compare to her. Feng Nu was more gentle than her, but less cold. Nian Bing suddenly realized that their eyes were very similar. The blue sky was so clear, without a trace of impurity. Looking at Bing Yun awkwardly, Nian Bing maintained his previous position and murmured, "Could this be the legendary milk-grabbing hand? The elasticity is really good." "You bastard!" A drop of water fell on Nian Bing's face, and the water was so cold. Chapter 113. Bing Yun struggled to stand up. Her eyes were full of anger and murderous intent. Countless blue elements surrounded her body and were released, crazily sweeping towards Nian Bing. Nian Bing jumped in fright. He rolled on the ground and barely managed to stand up. A red aura rose around his body, barely blocking Frozen Cloud's attack. "Hey, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm going to kill you." Bing Yun's beautiful face was slightly distorted. Her eyes were completely red, as if she was a lioness who was about to devour someone. Bing Yun's breath continued to rise. She began to chant the strongest spell she could release. "Are you crazy?" Nian Bing knew that something was wrong when he heard Bing Yun's spell. If she really used it, not only would he die, but Bing Yun would also be finished. Nian Bing didn't cherish Bing Yun's life, but he didn't want her to die like this. He still had to find his parents' whereabouts from her. Without any hesitation, he rushed towards Bing Yun again. He had to interrupt this spell. Several icicles shot out instantly. Unfortunately, without the control of his spiritual power, the icicles were scattered in all directions. Only one icicle flew towards Nian Bing from the front. Nian Bing didn't care about dodging at this time. He leaned his body to the side to avoid being hit. He grabbed Bing Yun's shoulder with one hand and covered her mouth with the other. The icicle accurately pierced Nian Bing's shoulder, but without the control of spiritual power, it didn't pierce too deeply. The pain in his hand followed his shoulder. Nian Bing cried out in pain, "Why did you bite me?" The spell was interrupted. Nian Bing picked up the proud sky blade on the ground and held it against Bing Yun's neck. He endured the pain in his shoulder and hand and said, "Just admit defeat. What's the point of continuing to fight?" Tears flowed down Bing Yun's beautiful face. Since she was young, even the ice goddess priests treated her like a pearl. Her pure body had never been insulted like this. How could she stand it? He suddenly closed his eyes, and his neck unexpectedly collided with the proud heaven blade. Nian Bing had been a cook for many years, so her reaction was very fast. As soon as she found that something was wrong, she immediately withdrew her proud heaven knife and raised her hand to hit Bing Yun's neck, knocking her out. Damn, what a crazy woman! The competition is finally over. The dramatic ending left everyone dumbfounded. No one would have thought that the two powerful mages would end the battle in such a way. Nian Bing placed Bing Yun's body on the ground and quickly removed the magic array on the ground. His mental strength began to gradually recover. He first cast a healing spell on himself, which made him feel a little better. He strode to the side of the spectator's stand. He bowed slightly and said to Emperor Huatian, "Your Majesty, the competition is over. I think I should be the champion of this competition." Emperor Huatian's eyes revealed a trace of a smile. "Good, the Five Kingdoms' new mage competition is over. The champion is Mage Nian Bing, who represents the Ice Moon Empire's Mage Guild. Pass down my order. Announce the rankings of this competition to the world. Prince Rong, please give the champion's prize to Mage Nian Bing." Prince Rong's face revealed a rare smile. He took the brocade box from the guard beside him and nodded to Nian Bing. Nian Bing heaved a sigh of relief as he strode down the arena and arrived in front of Prince Rong. Prince Rong handed the brocade box to him. "Congratulations on being the champion. From now on, you are the owner of this longevity sword. The longevity sword needs fresh blood to be sharpened. I think you should understand this." Nian Bing bowed to Prince Rong and put the brocade box into his spatial ring. "Thank you, Prince Rong." Emperor Huatian said, "All right, the competition is over. Tonight we will hold a banquet in the palace. We will invite all the mages from the various kingdoms and give out the rewards I promised. You can all go and rest now." Prince Rong and Nian Bing walked into the scripture hall together. As they walked, Nian Bing whispered, "Brother, when did Bing Yun leave? How come I didn't know?" It turned out that when he turned around to look for Bing Yun after obtaining the longevity sword, she had already disappeared. Rong Bing chuckled. "You're really something. How did you come up with such a despicable plan? But the magic array you drew was really amazing. It could even break a Khanate level domain. Frozen Cloud woke up right after you walked down the stage to receive your award. She seemed to have glared at you fiercely before leaving the training hall without looking back. Oh right, what did you do when you two fell on the stage? It's not easy to make someone from the Ice God Tower so angry." Nian Bing smiled bitterly. "It was a misunderstanding. It was just a misunderstanding." "Rong Bing." A familiar voice rang out. When the two brothers turned around, they saw Enoch running over excitedly. She smiled at Nian Bing and said, "Congratulations, you won the competition this time." Nian Bing smiled. "Sister-in-law, big brother gave it to me. Otherwise, how could I have won the competition?" Enoch snorted and said, "Don't give me that. I'm not blind. But even if our Rong Bing's magic is not as good as yours, so what? Rong Bing, tell me, are you going to be transferred?" Rong Bing looked at her in shock. "How did you know?" Once the words left his mouth, he immediately reacted. But it was too late to take them back. Enoch's eyes reddened. "You don't want me anymore?" Rong Bing frowned. "What does this have to do with whether I want you or not? Our marriage was bestowed by His Majesty. Why would I go against it? This external transfer was just to increase his writing experience." Enoch's eyes were filled with anger. "You mean to say that if it wasn't for my grandfather's orders, you wouldn't have married me at all? All right, Rong Bing, you'd better remember this." With that, she turned around and left. Rong Bing was stunned for a moment and snorted. "Ridiculous. Women are really fickle. Nian Bing patted Rong Bing's shoulder and said, "Hurry up and catch up with her. Coax her and it'll be fine. Women need to be coaxed. Don't be so cold to sister-in-law all the time. After all, you're going to spend the rest of your life together. I'm going back to see Feng Nu too. I'll see you at the palace banquet tonight." With that, she left Rong Bing alone. The matter here was already over. It was time to complete Yu Ruyan's orders. Walking out of the palace, he stepped into the bustling street. Taking a deep breath, he felt much more relaxed. He turned back to look at the palace. It didn't matter if Feng Nu was Yu Ruyan's daughter or not. He wouldn't be attending the banquet tonight. It was time to leave this place. He would definitely do what he promised Prince Rong, but he didn't want to stay here any longer. From the way Emperor Hua Tian looked at him, Nian Bing understood many things. What he needed was freedom, not to serve any country. Last night, Prince Rong had asked him if he was willing to serve the Huarong Empire. Nian Bing refused. Prince Rong didn't say much. He only gave Nian Bing the last of his magic insights and gave him a few more things. Although Prince Rong didn't say much, Nian Bing understood what he meant. He was about to leave this bustling city. Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a lot more relaxed. Now, his only worry was Feng Nu. If Feng Nu was really Yu Ruyan's daughter, would she be able to bear such an unforeseen event? He returned to the hotel. He had stayed there for a while, so the hotel staff already knew him. He greeted the staff and walked to his room. Just as he reached the door, Nian Bing immediately realized that something was wrong. The door was slightly ajar, and there was a gap between the door and the door. Although he and Feng Nu didn't lock the door at night, they didn't have the habit of leaving it open. He couldn't help but push the door open and enter. The room was empty. Feng Nu wasn't there. Nian Bing's heart tightened. Just as he was about to go out and ask the staff, he found a piece of paper on the table in the room. Nian Bing grabbed the paper and saw a few lines of crooked handwriting. Obviously, it wasn't Feng Nu's handwriting. "Boy, you're Nian Bing, right? If you want your wife to live, leave the city from the north gate. Keep going north. After walking for about 10 miles, you'll see a dense forest. Go through the forest and you'll see a mountain. I'll wait for you at the foot of the mountain. I know you're from the Rong family, but if you bring people here, I'm afraid you'll only see your wife's corpse." F***CK. Nian Bing had never felt so angry. His heart was in a mess. He tore the paper in his hand into pieces. His eyes flashed with a complicated light. Taking a deep breath, Nian Bing tried his best to calm himself down. Facing this kind of situation, it was useless to be anxious. Pulling a chair and sitting down, he recalled the contents of the paper. He immediately judged that the other party wasn't Feng Nu's clansman. If it was Elder Feng Kong who took away Feng Nu, he definitely wouldn't have left a message for him. Moreover, to be able to capture a swordsman-level Feng Nu so easily, among the people he knew, perhaps only his godmother Yu Ruyan and the Fire Dragon King Garamans could do it. But how could Yu Ruyan come here? She was still busy with the matters of the Ottoman Empire. Thinking of this, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Who was the person who took away Feng Nu? In terms of strength, he wasn't even as good as Feng Nu. The reason he took away Feng Nu seemed to be for himself. Could it be that he was after his few top-grade magic blades? Thinking of this, Nian Bing immediately thought of the contestants from the various countries in this competition. Only they had seen his treasures. Indeed, these priceless treasures could easily arouse the interest of others. His heart kept analyzing all kinds of possibilities, but the more he thought, the more chaotic his heart became. No matter what, he had to save Feng Nu. Even if he had to go through a mountain of blades and a sea of flames, he had to give it a try. Even if the other party wanted his treasured blades, for the sake of Feng Nu, he had no choice but to take them out. Thinking of this, Nian Bing took out the brocade box containing the longevity blade from his spatial ring. He first placed a seal in the room before opening the box. Under the effects of the seal, the radiance on the blade was clearly not as intense. However, the abundant life energy still made Ling Nianbing's body tremble. He didn't rush to take the blade out of the box. Instead, he bit his finger and carefully dripped a drop of blood onto the yellow gemstone on the blade's hilt. The blood instantly fused with the gemstone. With a soft hum, the longevity blade actually left the brocade box and floated up. A yellow halo of light fluctuated, and a strong life energy with a refreshing smell swept through Nianbing's body. Closing his eyes, Nianbing used his heart to feel this peerless treasured blade. He allowed the life energy to nourish his body. It was definitely a wonderful feeling. The life energy that swept through his body kept rising. Every pore on his skin seemed to have opened up, frantically absorbing the enormous life energy brought about by the longevity blade. This was a process of fusion. Before this, every time he obtained a treasured blade, he had to go through this process. However, the time and experience of the process were completely different. The first few magical blades that left the deepest impression on Nianbing was naturally the Holy Radiance blade that pierced through his chest. Of course, he only remembered the pain. However, when the longevity blade in front of him fused with his body, the aura it brought about was so wonderful. Under the effect of the life energy, his body's functions grew crazily. The heavenly splendor token in front of his chest became scorching hot. The red and blue mana in his body were enveloped by a layer of yellow light. The large amount of mana and stamina that he had lost in the competition were rapidly recovering. Even his mental strength was constantly rising under the influence of this life energy, nearing his optimal state. Inspiration flashed through his mind. Nianbing seemed to have understood something. With a wave of his hands, the morning dew blade and the righteous sun blade appeared in his hands. He stood up. In a flash of light, the two blades outlined a triangular halo of light, forming a hexagram of ice and fire on the ground. Nianbing inserted the morning dew and the righteous sun blades into the center of the hexagram. Then, he continuously summoned one magical blade after another from his space ring. The entire room was filled with the aura of magic. One could even hear the excited sounds of the various mana elements. The rich mana elements continued to baptize Nianbing's body. He stood in front of the morning dew and the righteous sun blades, allowing them to absorb the mana elements of their respective elements. Rays of light nourished his body, and the mana of ice and fire in his body quickly recovered. At this moment, his mind was abnormally clear. Although his eyes were closed, he could clearly feel everything that was happening around him. With a slight smile, Nianbing suddenly opened his eyes. A strong cold light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, the Holy Brilliance Blade, Demon Devouring Blade, Proud Heaven Blade, and 4 Stars Blade were all inserted into the ground around the magic array. The 6 colors of light intersected and shone, but it rejected the light released by the longevity blade in the air. Stretching out his firm right hand, Nianbing grabbed the longevity blade's hilt. The yellow gemstone on the hilt suddenly shone brightly. An abnormally strong life energy surged out and engulfed Nianbing's body. "Ah!" Nianbing shouted. He suddenly turned the blade around and knelt on one knee. He also inserted the longevity blade into the edge of the hexagram. The 6 colors of the mana instantly turned into 7. At the same time, the aura of the mana underwent a drastic change. Everything in the room that was originally clearly visible became distorted. The 7 colors of light intertwined in the air. Nianbing's spiritual energy was also divided into 7 parts and merged into each of the 7 colors of light. The 7 different types of mana emitted 7 different types of powerful aura. They clashed and pressed against each other. After the life energy was added to the original 6 types of mana, everything became different. The ice and fire elemental magic in Nianbing's body began to fluctuate violently. The magic that was originally calm in his chest and abdomen began to change under the influence of the magic aura in the outside world. The red and blue light gradually approached each other in Nianbing's body. At this moment, Nian Bing's spiritual power was unconsciously scattered, and he actually lost control of it. A sudden feeling flashed through his mind. As a mana caster of ice and fire, Nian Bing naturally knew what would happen when ice and fire collided without control. With the strength of the mana in his body, if he didn't control it, once they came into contact with each other, not to mention himself, even if there were 200 or 100 of him, he was afraid that he would turn into ashes. Thinking of this, Nian Bing's heart was filled with fear. However, he couldn't do anything to change the situation. He desperately tried to gather his spiritual energy to stop the collision of ice and fire. However, the aura released by the 7 mana blades each pulled on a part of his spiritual energy. The strong suction force made it impossible for him to withdraw his spiritual energy to save himself. The red that represented fire and the blue that represented ice seemed to be deliberately tormenting Nian Bing, even though they were constantly getting closer. However, the speed of their approach was very slow, as if they wanted to use pressure to grind Nian Bing's will. At this time, Nian Bing's attention was completely focused on the mana of ice and fire in his body. He didn't realize that the blue and blue mana outside his body was no longer as messy as before. They started to rotate, and the mana of the 7 colors formed a circle of organic combination. The distribution of the halos gradually became more uniform, and Nian Bing's body was right in the middle of this mana vortex. The whole vortex under the influence of the blue and red light kept invading his body. Nian Bing's clothes unknowingly turned into powder and disappeared. To be precise, within a radius of 5 feet, except for the hexagram on the ground, everything disappeared. The table was eroded into a circular hole, and the bed had a corner cut off by the mana vortex. Sweat flowed down Nian Bing's forehead. But very quickly it evaporated. The red and blue mana vortex in his body was still approaching. The shadow of death invaded Nian Bing's mind, but no matter how hard he tried, his body had already entered a state of being sealed. He could only watch as the mana vortex got closer, and there was nothing he could do. The red and blue mana vortex became more and more intense. Nian Bing was already in despair, and his brain couldn't think of anything else. He could only think of the word death. He didn't want to die, and there were too many things waiting for him to do. But, in this situation, what else could he do? He could only wait. Wait for his body to be destroyed by the ice and fire. It felt like 100 years had passed. Finally, the red and blue mana vortex got closer, and there was only a hairline distance between them. At this time, Nian Bing's mind was on the verge of collapse, but he still tried his best to summon his mana vortex, hoping for a miracle to happen. Did a miracle happen? No. His mana vortex was completely sucked out of his body, and he couldn't stop this final moment from coming. Ripples like lightning appeared around the red and blue mana vortex. When the 2 mana vortex came into contact with each other, Nian Bing suddenly had a strange feeling. It wasn't ice or fire, but a feeling of nothingness. Suddenly, a transparent space without any color appeared between the 2 mana vortex balls. It was indeed a transparent space without any color, but he couldn't see anything else through it. In this strange feeling, the red and blue mana vortex balls seemed to be sucked in by this empty space. The 2 mana vortex balls changed shape, and they were no longer round. Instead, they looked like fish, slowly revolving around the empty space. No matter how the mana vortex balls collided with the mana vortex balls, there wasn't a single ripple, as if they were supposed to be one. Before Nian Bing could breathe a sigh of relief, his entire body suddenly trembled. He suddenly felt restless between his eyebrows. In the next moment, a surge of magical energy had already rushed into his body from between his eyebrows. Like rivers flowing into the sea, it directly rushed to a point of nothingness between his chest and abdomen. If Nian Bing could see the outside world at this time, he would be surprised to find that the 7-colored light that was originally revolving around his body had risen up, and the tip of the vortex was between his eyebrows. The energy of the entire vortex was continuously flowing in, and the external energy was gradually decreasing. In the void, under the impact of the ribbon-like energy, the originally revolving ice and fire energies spun even faster. Gradually, rays of light flashed, and the ice and fire energies turned back into two balls. However, this time, it didn't feel like energy, but a solid entity. The red and blue balls of light were sucked into the fingernail-sized void in the center, and were rapidly rotating. Around the rotating red and blue lights, 5 light spots gradually appeared. 5 rotating light dots. Their colors were green, yellow, silver, gold, and white respectively. The 5 light balls were obviously much smaller than the original ice and fire energy balls, but at the same time, they also felt solid. Nian Bing didn't know what was going on at all. Facing the strange changes in his body, he was a little sluggish. The 5 small light balls gradually increased in size under the continuous influx of energy from the outside world, but the speed of their rotation was still very slow. It was much slower than the ice and fire energy balls at the core. Finally, Nian Bing's body trembled again, and the influx of energy from outside his body finally ended. He was surprised to find that he could actually see everything in the outside world. It wasn't through his eyes, nor was it through the spiritual energy that had returned to his body, but through the space between his eyebrows. It was as if he had grown a third eye. A cool feeling came from the space between his eyebrows, as if he had been enlightened. Nian Bing realized. Looking out from the space between his eyebrows, everything around him seemed to have become clearer. He could even see the patterns on the objects, and he could clearly see the speed and traces of the energy fluctuations on his magic knife. It really was like an eye, a strange eye. At this moment, spiritual energy swept through his body like a tide, crazily pouring into the empty space between the red and blue light balls. At this moment, Nian Bing's mind went blank for a moment, as if everything had disappeared. When he woke up again, he found that everything had changed. The red and blue light balls were touching each other and rotating slowly, and the empty space in the middle had disappeared. The other 5 smaller light balls were still rotating slowly around the red and blue light balls. Moreover, Nian Bing had regained the ability to control his body. Just as he was about to get up, suddenly, he was surprised to find that there was something in his brain. When he carefully examined it, he was surprised to find that it was actually a transparent light ball. To be precise, it was a transparent light ball formed by the empty space from before. The glass-like light ball silence stopped in the space between his eyebrows. It really was like an eye that could see through everything in the world. Unfortunately, because of the transparent light ball, Nian Bing looked at the outside world through the space between his eyebrows and became distorted and blurred. However, what made Ling Nian Bing excited was that he found that his brain had become incomparably clear, and all kinds of magic information kept flashing through his mind. Some problems that he couldn't understand before were solved reasonably, and even the process of understanding was clearly imprinted in the depths of his mind. His spiritual energy seemed to have disappeared, but Nian Bing found that no matter what magic element, as long as he casually thought about it, he would immediately feel connected to it. Especially that transparent light ball in the space between his eyebrows, when he wanted to control magic, it would emit a faint light. Nian Bing dared to imagine, could this transparent light ball be formed by his spiritual energy? And why was his brain so clear? Slowly opening his eyes, Nian Bing saw his naked body. He was surprised to find that he had sweated a lot before, but his body was as smooth as a baby. His sparkling skin exuded a healthy pink color, and his whole body had a strange feeling. With a thought, his body floated up from the ground. At this moment, he could only think of 4 words: reborn. The 7 magic blades were still there, but the 7 colored gems on the hilts seemed to have dimmed. Nian Bing raised his left hand, and just as he was about to put them into his space ring, he was surprised to find that his space ring had changed again. The silver ring had become transparent like a crystal, and the whole ring was like a part of his hand. With a thought, the 7 magic blades on the ground disappeared at the same time, and he clearly felt that the 7 magic blades were all put into the ring. His palm moved lightly, and the crystal-like ring shone with a colorful light. Although it was not obvious, the gorgeous feeling still left a deep impression on Nian Bing. What's going on? What exactly happened? Nian Bing was at a loss, but he faintly felt that his ice and fire magic seemed to have improved. With a thought, he raised his right hand and a wind blade quietly appeared. The cyan wind blade was so clear that with a light flick of his finger, it had already left a deep mark on the wall. The joy in his heart was hard to hide. Even without proud Heavenblade, he could still use wind magic. Although it was only an instant wind blade of the 2nd rank, it was still a good start. No matter what happened, his strength had definitely improved. Without using a magic blade, he could actually use wind magic. Could it be that he had really become an all-element magician? Thinking of this, Nian Bing tested a few spells in succession. Just as he expected, the 7 elements of magic were actually displayed in his hands one by one. However, when he used ice and fire magic instantaneously, the feeling was completely different. Not only was the magic connected by flesh and blood, but at the same time, in terms of power and the feeling of control, it was much stronger than the other 5 elements of magic. His clear brain accurately helped Nian Bing to analyze the problem. He faintly understood that it was his ice and fire magic that was triggered by the all-element magic blade that produced the current mutation. Although he could already use 7 elements of magic, but fundamentally speaking, he was still an ice and fire magic magician. Ice and fire were his roots, and the other 5 elements of magic were built on this foundation. Although the size of the 7 elements of magic was very small, but there was a connection between them. Everything was based on the ice and fire magic. At the same time, Nian Bing also understood that there wasn't a fundamental increase in his strength. It was just that the form of his energy had changed, paving the way for him to continue cultivating. It was just like how the magical energy in his body was originally a small stream, and it was already filled with magical energy. Now, the water in the small stream had changed, and condensed into a solid state. The narrow stream had now become a vast ocean, and it was undoubtedly very beneficial for his continued development. The only thing that Nian Bing did not understand was the current form of his spiritual energy. He could only feel that his spiritual energy had condensed into that transparent ball between his eyebrows, but the feeling of his spiritual energy was not as deep as before. It was not as easy to control magic as before. After straightening out all of this, Nian Bing smiled. He was very clear that the change of magic in his body today was definitely not as simple as luck. More importantly, it was the benefits brought by his long-term cultivation. When the quantitative change reached a certain level, it would naturally lead to a qualitative change. And today, he had experienced a qualitative change. Although Nian Bing had also thought that sooner or later his ice and fire magic would have a qualitative change, he did not expect it to happen so quickly. He knew that this qualitative change was definitely inseparable from his 7 unrivaled magic blades. It was only because they had provided him with sufficient energy that this kind of change could happen. After changing into a new set of clothes, a comfortable feeling spread throughout his body. Everything that had happened to his body had ended. He immediately thought of Feng Nu, and his originally relaxed eyebrows could not help but tightly knit together. Should he ask Rong Bing for help? No, he could not trouble his own brother anymore. Moreover, he did not want to borrow the power of the Rong family to do anything. Only relying on himself was the best choice. With the improvement of his strength and a clear analysis, Nian Bing left the room without looking back. He did not leave through the door, because the anxiety in his heart made him unable to wait any longer. This time, he did not use Blizzard. Instead, He used the wind element's wind-soaring magic. He floated out of the window, and in the blink of an eye, rose high into the sky and headed north. Chapter 114. The soaring wind spell was not considered fast, at least not as fast as the blizzard spell, but it saved a lot of mana and could continue flying. As he felt the wind flowing around him, Nian Bing realized that he seemed to have become a part of the wind. At this moment, the magical power in his body had also undergone a miraculous change. The 5 magic balls that were originally revolving around the red and blue light balls had now become 4. Among them, the green one had actually fused with the central magic ball of ice and fire. As it spun at the core, more wind elements were channeled into his body from the air, and the speed at which his magical power was being depleted was extremely slow. Feeling this change, Nian Bing could not help but be overjoyed. The soaring wind spell was already an intermediate wind magic, and the consumption was actually so small. It could be seen that after his body mutated, he could already release stronger magic with a lower cost. In other words, in the future when he fought with others, his ability to continue fighting would greatly increase. For a magician, being able to use mana for a longer time was undoubtedly a huge benefit. However, at this time, Nian Bing did not care about the benefits of using mana efficiently. He was more concerned about Feng Nu's safety. Although the soaring wind spell was not as fast as the blizzard spell, it was still much faster than walking. Very quickly, he left the city through the air and quickly flew towards the north. After flying for 10 miles, Nian Bing indeed saw a dense forest by the side of the road. He lowered his flying speed and quickly passed through the forest on the treetop. In the process of flying, he was surprised to find that his perception of the outside world was much stronger than before. Although he could not use his mental strength to activate it, but in terms of perception, it was not much worse than when he used his mental strength. When he was about to pass through the forest, Nian Bing fiercely increased his flying altitude. It was always easier to observe from above. Maybe there would be a chance to sneak attack the enemy. In order to save Feng Nu, he would do anything. At this time, a slow voice sounded in Nian Bing's ears. "Kid, don't waste your energy flying. Come down quickly. Don't you want your wife's life?" Nian Bing's heart trembled. The voice sounded in his ears, but it was very obvious that this person was using the voice transmission technique. Feng Nu had also used it before, but it was definitely not as effortless as the other party. She didn't even see the person, but the voice could be heard so clearly. Nian Bing gathered her thoughts and flew faster. Finally, she passed through the forest. Far away, he could already see a small hill at the foot of the hill. Feng Nu's red figure was particularly clear. Seeing Feng Nu's figure, Nian Bing's heart immediately calmed down. He controlled his magic and floated down. Feng Nu stood at the foot of the mountain. Her beautiful figure seemed a little frail. Her red dress fluttered gently in the mountain breeze. She stood there motionless. Her entire person seemed to be sluggish and stupefied. Even when she saw Nian Bing appear, she did not have any reaction. It was obvious that someone had used a special method to restrain her. Nian Bing's gaze turned to Feng Nu's side. A fatso was sitting on the ground. Fatso's body was unusually tall. Even if he was sitting, he didn't feel shorter than him. A pair of fat hands were holding a roasted lamb leg and constantly gnawing on it. It seemed to be very delicious. His hands were covered in grease. There was a fire in front of him. Obviously, it was used to roast the lamb leg. Nian Bing had never seen this fatso before. It was difficult to estimate his weight from his body shape. Almost every part of his body was filled with fat, so he couldn't tell his age. It was he who kidnapped Feng Nu. Nian Bing walked step by step towards Feng Nu and said coldly, "What did you do to Feng Nu?" Fatso continued to eat the roasted lamb leg in his hands. He slowly stood up from the ground. Nian Bing suddenly realized that he was actually 2 heads taller than himself. Coupled with his huge body, he was practically a mountain of meat. Fatso waved the lamb leg that still had half a piece of meat in his hand and laughed. The fat on his face squeezed his eyes so much that it was almost impossible to see. That's right, it's me. Do we have a grudge? I don't think I know you. Nian Bing stopped and looked at him calmly. Fatso shook his head and took a bite of the lamb. No grudge, no grudge. Then why did you kidnap my wife and restrain her? Nian Bing stared at Fatso. From the outside, Fatso didn't have any aura to speak of. He also didn't give off any pressure. It was impossible to see through him. But it was because of this that Nian Bing was even more worried. What kind of strength did Feng Nu have? He was swordsman. To be able to kidnap Feng Nu and bring her here without anyone noticing, this Fatso's strength was definitely unfathomable. Fatso laughed and said, Actually, I didn't have any other intentions when I kidnapped your wife. Don't worry, I won't hurt her. Of course, this is under the condition that you're willing to cooperate. Cooperate? How do we cooperate? Nian Bing looked at Fatso suspiciously. Fatso gestured at the lamb leg in his hand and said, It's simple. If you want to take your wife away, there's only one way, and that is to defeat me. But of course, there's a condition. I can give you time. Every 10 days you can challenge me once. As long as you win, you can naturally take her away. But if you lose, then you have to wholeheartedly cook a delicious meal for me. During this period, as long as you don't slack off, I can guarantee that your wife will be safe and sound. Otherwise, it's hard to say. Nian Bing looked at Fatso in surprise and asked, How did you know that I'm a chef? Ever since he came to Capital Sky City, he had never shown his culinary skills in front of anyone. Moreover, he had never seen Fatso before. Fatso took another bite of the lamb. He opened his mouth, and a large piece of meat went into his mouth. I came from the Ice Moon Empire. As you can see, I'm very fat. Fat people usually have 2 hobbies. One is eating and the other is sleeping. I really like this kind of food. After I arrived at the Ice Moon Empire, I once ate at a place called the Cool Breeze Restaurant. The food at that time was indeed very good. I heard from the people at that time that there was an Icefire magic chef whose cooking skills were very good. Thus, I learned about your existence from various aspects, so I came to find you. Kid, I hope that your culinary skills won't disappoint me. Otherwise, I'll cripple your wife and return her to you. I heard that you're very arrogant. You didn't even go when the king of the Ice Moon Empire summoned you. So, I can only capture your wife and see if you'll cook for me. How about it? If you're ready, we can start now. Nian Bing's eyes flashed with a cold light. He came from the Ice Moon Empire? He captured Feng Nu for food? After hearing Fatso's words, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fatso's smile was a little sinister. However, it seemed that he didn't really want to hurt him and Feng Nu. He couldn't help but become more polite. Senior, if you want to eat, it's very easy. How about this? Let go of Feng Nu first, and I'll cook for you wholeheartedly. What do you think? Fatso shook his head. No. I've been following you for a few days. You're very cunning. I feel more at ease with your wife here. Besides, I don't just want to eat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dragged my fat all the way here to find you. I've seen your competition in that whatever palace. Although you're not very strong, you still have some special characteristics. Nian Bing was shocked. You've been to the palace? You're one of Emperor Hua Tian's people? Fatso curled his lips. What is that emperor? In my eyes, he's no different from a chicken leg. You don't need to try to trick me. You definitely won't be able to guess where I came from. You don't need to care about anything else. I've already stated my conditions. If you're willing to admit defeat, then cook for me first. I'm not a greedy person. I only eat once every 10 days, and then I'll go to sleep. After you cook for me today, I'll contact you again in 10 days. Nian Bing frowned. Are you threatening me? Fatso chuckled, the fat on his face trembling. He said matter-of-factly, That's right. I'm threatening you. So what? Who told my fist to be bigger than yours? If you have the ability, then hit me. If you can beat me, then I'll return your wife to you. You can beat me to vent your anger. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll have the chance in this lifetime. Fine, then let's fight. Do you think I'm afraid of you? However, it's easy for my wife to be injured here. Let me send her to a place farther away first, and then we'll fight. How about it? Nian Bing looked at Fatso calmly. Fatso ate the last piece of meat on the leg of lamb. Stop dreaming. Kid, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? In front of me, don't think of anything. It's useless. It's easy to keep your wife safe. I'll just put her away. As he spoke, under Nian Bing's shocked gaze, Fatso waved his hand. A yellow light enveloped Feng Nu. In an instant, Feng Nu disappeared. What did you do to Feng Nu? Nian Bing was so anxious that she could not help but take a few steps forward. Fatso replied leisurely, Nothing, I put her in my interspatial bag. Don't worry, this interspatial bag can store living things. I even put a few pigs in it a few days ago. If not, what if I get hungry? Nian Bing was furious. She raised her hand and threw a fireball at him. How dare you compare my Feng Nu to a pig? You even put her together with a pig? Fatso did not seem to want to anger Nian Bing. He waved his hand and said, No, of course not. Every time I put something in my interspatial bag, there'll be a special space, and they won't touch each other. I'm afraid that they'll smell. When we're done, I'll let her out and let you see that she's in good condition. When the fireball reached him, it was immediately blocked by a layer of yellow light and disappeared. Looking at the stubborn Fatso in front of her, Nian Bing suppressed her anger. From the way Fatso captured Feng Nu, she knew that it would be difficult for her to contend against him. However, she wanted to at least try now. She wanted to see how big the gap was between her and Fatso. Then she would think of a way to save Feng Nu. Your Do Chi is of the earth attribute, but what do you, a warrior, need an interspatial bag for? Fatso said impatiently, Are you going to fight or not? If not, I'll make a move on your wife. To be precise, I'm a magic warrior. I also know a little about earth magic. Moreover, it's so convenient to carry an interspatial bag. Magic warrior? Nian Bing had never dealt with a magic warrior before. She couldn't help but be more vigilant. She smiled indifferently and said, Since you're forcing me, then I won't be polite. Her left hand flashed with a silver light and she suddenly had an extra set of clothes on her body. Fatso saw Nian Bing's clothes and couldn't help but laugh. Boy, what are you wearing? Too funny. Nian Bing had an extra vest on his body. The vest looked a little awkward when it was strapped to his clothes. There were hundreds of small strips of cloth on the vest, and each strip of cloth had a small roll of something stuck on it. Nian Bing looked coldly at Fatso. Her hands quickly touched the vest, and 8 small scrolls suddenly appeared between her fingers. She had specially found a tailor to make this set of clothes for her. She hadn't been idle these days. Although she knew that using too many magic scrolls would affect her magic practice, it had a decisive effect. Although this vest looked ordinary, the scrolls on it were all of Nian Bing's belongings. Almost all of her money had been used to buy a large number of top-grade white scrolls. Fortunately, the success rate of making scrolls was relatively high, so she was able to equip the entire vest. There were more than 100 scrolls in total, and the lowest was at the 5th grade. If she were to sell them, the price would definitely not be low. Fatso stared blankly for a moment, then asked, What are you holding in your hands? Hidden weapons? Nian Bing snorted disdainfully and said, Calling yourself a magic warrior? You don't even know what scrolls are. During the competition, he had told Bing Yun that if they met outside, even if she didn't use the eternal sleeping spell formation, she would still be able to defeat him. He was relying on this super vest. Nian Bing had given this vest a name, Hedgehog. Yes, more than 100 offensive magic scrolls. If all of them exploded with the power they should have, then it would definitely be terrifying. It was enough to live up to its name. Fatso laughed and said, What's the use of these things? Throw a few out and let's see. Nian Bing didn't get angry because of Fatso's contempt. Instead, she became even calmer. Her eyes flashed and 4 scrolls flew out. At the same time, several wind blades shot out, heading straight for Fatso's huge head. Fatso didn't even move, allowing the wind blades to cut him. A layer of pale yellow light appeared around his body, and the wind blades didn't even make a sound before disappearing. However, at this time, the 4 scrolls that flew out were already 3 meters away from Fatso. Nian Bing's thoughts moved, and the 4 scrolls sank at the same time. At this time, the other 4 scrolls in her hands also flew out. Facing a strong opponent, she didn't have the slightest bit of reservation. A red light instantly bloomed in front of Fatso. It was the strengthened version of the firewall spell of the 5th step. Compared to the firewall spell, the firewall spell was not only more powerful, but more importantly, it could be moved. The firewall spell was like a moving fortress, quickly pressing down on Fatso. Fatty still didn't move. He watched as the firewall drew closer and closer to him. At this moment, a huge ice orb appeared. Although it was only a monochromatic ice orb, its huge size and tyrannical impact allowed it to pass through the firewall in the blink of an eye. A strange scene occurred. The originally burning firewall was instantly absorbed by the ice orb. There were clearly 4 ice orbs, but at this moment they became 4 fireballs. Fatso was startled, and with a speed that was completely disproportionate to his body, he threw out 4 punches at lightning speed. Boom, 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 boom. 4 loud sounds erupted at the same time. Those weren't 4 simple magic spells, but 4 5th-step ice and fire bombs. Even if it was a small hill, it would be completely blown up. The whole ground around the center of the explosion spread out a large area of cracks. The surrounding shrubs mixed with the soil turned into fragments flying in the air. The air seemed to have become dark. That was the soil produced by the explosion. With a continuous rustling sound, the soil returned to the ground. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nian Bing didn't continue to use the scrolls. Those were all money. He quickly drew a hexagram of ice and fire in front of him, and with a circle of his hands, all 7 magic swords were drawn out. A 7-colored light surrounded the hexagram and rose at the same time. Nian Bing clearly felt that this time it was different. The 7 magic swords seemed to have become his life. Each of them was added with a surging magical aura. The 7-colored light shone, and Nian Bing even felt that even if it was any of the 7 elements, he was confident that he could instantly release a 3rd-step attack. Ice, you are the representative of cold. Fire, you are the source of burning heat. The aura of ice and fire. Please allow me to fuse your characteristics with your common source as a guide. Resonate. The red and blue light under the guidance of the hexagram instantly burst out with a surge of magical power. The 7 magic swords simultaneously let out a soft hum. The magical elements in the air became denser. Nian Bing suddenly felt a chill between his eyebrows. There, the eyes that were opened could see everything outside clearly again. Light, faintly flickering. Through the eyes in between his eyebrows, he could clearly see the magical elements being divided into 7 streams and continuously condensing towards the 7 magic swords. That was completely external energy, but now it could be controlled by him. Ecstasy swept through Nian Bing's heart. He didn't hesitate. He immediately began to chant a spell. Almighty God of Fire, please allow me. Let me borrow your right hand. Let the cannon descend upon the human world, extinguish all evil forces. The main cannon illuminates the earth, destroying all obstacles in front. Fire God's right hand. This was the first time Nian Bing tried a 9th-step spell that could be used by a magician. However, his heart didn't have the slightest apprehension. Ice and fire were his forte. After the mutation of the magical energy in his body, although his magical power didn't rise to a higher level, but he had complete confidence in using 9th-step fire and ice spells. The roar of the god of fire was like a furious roar. The fire elements in the air were instantly condensed under the guidance of Nian Bing's magical power. Thick flames revolved around Nian Bing's body and soared into the air. In a flash, it went through the process of turning from red to blue. This was the second stage of fire magic, true fire. The surging flames gradually condensed into an armored right hand. The enormous fire god's right hand floated in the air. The palm gradually stretched out, the armor on it also became clearer. Success, it really succeeded. Nian Bing's heart was beating with joy. At the same time, he also clearly discovered that the consumption of magical power in his body wasn't as much as he imagined. He could faintly feel that he was gradually able to use the true energy of the stone of fire. At this moment, a bold idea arose in his heart. Moreover, he immediately took action. Pure and firm ice. The breath of ice covers the earth, the breath of ice freezes the heaven and earth, the breath of ice freezes everything. The essence of ice. Please allow me to borrow your power to condense into the spear of the ice god, piercing through layers of obstacles, bringing coldness to every corner of the world. Spear of the ice god. Following the appearance of the incantation, blue specks of light rapidly condensed on the sai of the ice goddess. Above the morning dew rose clouds of white fog. The fog pervaded the air, quickly condensing on the other side of Nian Bing's body. Just at this moment, Nian Bing suddenly clearly felt that the magical power of the same origin of fire and ice that was originally rapidly revolving in his body suddenly slowed down. Under the influence of the spear of the ice god, the magical power quickly poured out. The eye between his eyebrows suddenly became a lot more turbid, and a feeling of dizziness continuously invaded his body. This feeling was clearly the result of excessive consumption of magical power. Nian Bing's heart was filled with puzzlement. This shouldn't be. With the remaining magical power he had just now, he should have been able to use 3 more spells of the 9th step. How could it be that after just using one, the magical power in his body seemed to have been completely drained? Along with the rapid weakening of his magical power came an enormous pressure. Just the fire god's right hand alone didn't make Nian Bing feel any discomfort, but when the spear of the ice god gradually appeared, the enormous pressure brought about by the 2 spells almost made him breathless. That transparent ball between his eyebrows emitted a faint glow, which made him feel a little more comfortable. The eye between his eyebrows also became clear again. Blue specks of light continuously condensed, and a blue spear with a length of 20 feet and the thickness of a person's thigh appeared. In the midst of the flickering light, the spear brought about a faint cold glint. 2 completely different auras of ice and fire filled Nian Bing's 2 sides. Right at this moment, the dust from the previous explosion finally settled. The air gradually became clear, and on the ground where Fatso had originally been standing, there was a large hole with a diameter of 15 feet. Although Nian Bing had already expected that his previous attack wouldn't be able to harm Fatso, he dared not to think that the result would actually be like this. Fatso stood in the middle of the large hole with a smile, his hand still holding the leg bone of the lamb. Looking at Nian Bing, his eyes were full of ridicule. However, when he saw the fire god's right hand and the ice god's spear on both sides of Nian Bing, he couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. "Oh? I underestimated you, to actually be able to use 2 spells of the 9th step at the same time. I'm afraid that even a grand mage would find it hard to do. How did you succeed? Using 2 spells of the same rank at the same time consumes 4 times the energy consumption of the body compared to using 1 spell. This is especially true for spells of the 8th step and above. Kid, it seems that your ice and fire cognate is really quite interesting." Nian Bing resisted the shock in his heart with great difficulty, not showing it on his face. The power of the previous 8 scrolls explosion was at least equivalent to 2 spells of the 7th step. However, the result was that even Fatso's clothes weren't damaged. He really couldn't understand what this Fatso had actually done. Could it be that this was the difference in strength? He couldn't wait any longer, because Nian Bing's mental force was already somewhat unable to control the two spells floating around his body. He didn't reply to Fatso's words, and with a loud shout, both his hands abruptly pointed forward. The ice god's spear whistled with a biting cold aura, the cold aura piercing through the air, emitting a sharp sound. Fatso's face revealed a trace of seriousness. His small eyes unexpectedly revealed a trace of golden radiance. However, his next action almost angered Nian Bing to death. He actually raised the leg of the lamb in his hand, making a gesture as if he was holding a sword. Fatso didn't dodge the previous few attacks, which also gave Nian Bing a signal. The fire god's right hand moved later but arrived first, unexpectedly catching the spear of the emperor god when it was still 2 meters away from Fatso. At this time, Nian Bing waved his left hand, quickly retrieving the 7 magic blades, and in a flash, he cast a wind element acceleration spell on himself, retreating like lightning. What a joke, 2 spells of the 9th step with the same origin of ice and fire, what kind of power would that produce? However, just as Nian Bing retreated nearly 10 meters, he was surprised to see that Fatso, who was originally standing on the ground, moved. His speed seemed to have surpassed lightning, the leg of the lamb in his hand just as the 2 spells of the 9th step were about to collide, and at the same time, his fat body instantly cut into the middle of the 2 spells, his fat back carrying a rich yellow radiance, in an instant, leaned against the ice god's spear, and at the same time, the leg of the lamb in his hand flashed. Ping! The first to erupt was a sky full of sparks. Nian Bing didn't see that when the leg of the lamb pierced fire god's right hand, a faint golden light flashed. The fire god's right hand, a spell of the 9th step, unexpectedly turned into a large amount of fire elements and scattered in the surroundings. Fatso seemed to be repelled by fire god's right hand. His fat body forcibly leaned back, forcibly moving the ice god's spear away from its original trajectory. At the same time, Nian Bing also discovered that his spiritual power had already lost the connection with fire god's right hand. No one could describe Nian Bing's shock at this moment. Fatso's fat body nimbly turned, and he actually reached out to grab the ice god's spear in his hand. At the same time, a yellow radiance instantly enveloped the entire spear, and with a shake of his wrist, the spear pierced straight into the ground, disappearing in an instant. A low rumbling sound came from the ground. The tremor of the 9th step spell caused the ground within a radius of 100 meters to tremble slightly, and a layer of frost hung on all kinds of plants within 100 meters. That was the aura of ice. The fatty landed on the ground with a smile on his face. In Nian Bing's eyes, his seemingly friendly smile was like that of a demon. It was too terrifying. More accurately speaking, the fatty's strength could no longer be described by the word terrifying. Nian Bing never thought that a human could so easily deal with 2 9th step spells. Especially when he dealt with fire god's right hand, that was a lamb's leg bone. Not to mention a bone, even if a flock of sheep were here, Nian Bing was confident that she could use this spell to turn them all into roasted lambs. However, the reality was now in front of her eyes. Fatso had dealt with these 2 spells so easily. Nian Bing felt that she was going crazy. How was she going to fight this? Facing such an enemy, did she have the slightest chance? The answer was uncertain. Fatso leisurely glanced at the lamb's leg bone in his hand and laughed, saying, "Kid, you're not bad. Just now, if not, I wouldn't have let these 2 spells of yours collide. Otherwise, even if the power wasn't as strong as a forbidden spell, it would probably be close. Your ice and fire magic is indeed interesting. Hee, what other skills do you have? Take them all out." Nian Bing's gaze gradually turned from shock to madness. "Give me back my phone new." His hand moved, and with a speed that even surprised Fatso, more than 100 magic scrolls were thrown out by Nian Bing one after another like throwing stones, each scroll flickering with a strange light. Facing such a strong enemy, Nian Bing was already a little crazy. At this time, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to destroy the opponent. Fatso's expression changed. Kid, are you crazy? I can't let you die with this. Nian Bing's mind was a little confused, but he wasn't. Although these scrolls weren't enough to hurt his body, the powerful destructive power was something that Nian Bing couldn't resist. God knows what kind of chain reaction would be caused by so many scrolls. After throwing out the scrolls, Nian Bing only felt his vision go black. The consumption of the previous 2 spells of the 9th rank, coupled with his anger, actually made him faint. After all, this was the first time he used the power of 7 magic swords in combination. Every time he used the highest level of magic of a sorcerer, such a strong pressure, even if his body was reborn, was still very difficult to bear. Fatso's body was like a meteorite, sweeping from below to Nian Bing like lightning. Those magic scrolls that were thrown out slid through his body like oil, flying in all directions. Fatso picked up Nian Bing, and suddenly 2 golden flames spurted out from his feet. His whole fat body was like a cannonball, and in the blink of an eye, he was already hundreds of feet in the air. He didn't even look back, and quickly flew in a direction. At the same time, a terrifying moment appeared. Magic lights of various colors flickered on the ground, and a low roar gradually sounded like the roar of the earth. The sound gradually became louder, and balls of light brought about a large mushroom cloud. When these balls of light came into contact with each other, it immediately caused an even bigger explosion. Countless explosions connected together, and the resulting airflow instantly swept through the entire forest that Nian Bing had passed through, as well as the mountain behind it. The next day, Emperor Hua Tian had an additional booklet on his desk. It said that there was an inexplicable explosion 5 miles north of Du Tian City. Within a radius of 5 miles, not a single blade of grass was left, as if it had been baptized by a forbidden spell. The entire area of the explosion was 30 feet deep, and all the magic elements seemed to have disappeared. After an unknown period of time, Nian Bing gradually woke up from his coma. Before he opened his eyes, he first looked at the situation in his body. The 7 spinning magic balls were still there, but they were much smaller in size, and the speed of their rotation was more like a crawling snail. Waves of weakness continuously attacked his body, and his brain gradually became clearer. However, the strange eye in between his eyebrows couldn't see anything outside. It had become turbid, as if even the transparent ball had disappeared. Chapter 115. As his consciousness gradually recovered, Nian Bing gradually remembered everything that had happened before. He opened his eyes abruptly and found himself in the wilderness. The sun shone on his body, bringing a burst of warmth. The fresh air made him feel much better. Looking down at his body, Nian Bing could not help but scream. The hedgehog vest was still there, but none of the scrolls on it was left. That was money. And it was energy. Nian Bing used a whole month to make these scrolls. Just the research and analysis of the various scrolls' functions and combinations had cost him a lot of effort. But now it had all been used up. Fatso, where's Fatso? The first person Nian Bing thought of when he woke up was Fatso. Of course, he was not worried about Fatso's safety. He was worried about Feng Nu, who was in Fatso's space bag. If Fatso was killed by his explosion, then wouldn't Feng Nu? Just as Nian Bing was filled with regret, a slow voice sounded from behind him. What's wrong? Are you awake? Good, good. Looks like I'm going to have something delicious to eat. Nian Bing turned around and saw Fatso leaning against a big tree, looking at him with a smile. Seeing that Fatso was fine, Nian Bing was relieved. At least, this proved that his Feng Nu was still alive. That was enough. Damn it, you damn Fatso, what are you made of? I had so many magic scrolls and you didn't die. Fatso looked at the unwilling Nian Bing and smiled. You have a lot of magic scrolls, and most of them can cause a chain reaction. Unfortunately, the strength of a single one is not enough. Even if I didn't run at that time, it wouldn't have caused any harm to me. What a pity those scrolls are still very good. If they were under the control of your mental strength, the power they could achieve should be even greater. but now it only flattened a small mountain and a forest. Those things are easy to make, right? You don't seem to feel any pain when using them. Bullshit. You don't feel bad at all. Those are all my treasures. Looking at the fatty's expression, he said. Nian Bing was on the verge of tears. The other party's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Could it be that he was a magic warrior on par with swordsmen? No, it can't be that simple. He's too strong. How can a swordsman neutralize 2 of my spells so easily? This Fatso was unimaginably terrifying. Fatso looked at Nian Bing's flustered and exasperated expression. He stood up and walked over. Kid, don't overthink it. This was the first competition. Does that count as your loss? At that time, you didn't have the ability to fight anymore. Nian Bing snorted and said, You're so much stronger than me. How can I possibly win? What realm has your Do Chi reached? Even my magic couldn't do anything to you. Fatty smiled and said, I'm very lazy, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid. If the power of your magic scrolls could be added together, let alone me, even those guys who call themselves gods wouldn't be able to resist. Unfortunately, the power of magic is very difficult to stack. Even if you could stack 1 or 2, you wouldn't be able to stack them all. None of the magic scrolls you sent out were a threat to me, so I took you and ran away. Didn't you think about yourself at that time? The power of so many magic scrolls exploding, I'm afraid your body wouldn't be able to handle it. Nian Bing was silent. That's right. If he was still there, I'm afraid. He raised his head and looked at Fatso. So you're saying that you saved me? Fatso laughed and said, Of course, you don't have to thank me. You just have to use your real skills when cooking. Nian Bing snorted and said, Only a ghost would be grateful to you. Fine, I admit defeat this time. Fatso's eyes revealed a trace of joy. Good, then you can start cooking for me now. Nian Bing said, Fatso, how about I discuss something with you? Since he couldn't defeat him, he could only use his wits. Although he was very confident in himself, especially in his future development, he also knew that if he wanted to defeat this Fatso in front of him, he would not be able to do it in a few years. What do you want to discuss with me? It's best if it's related to food. I love talking about food, it will increase my appetite. Nian Bing reluctantly squeezed out a smile and said, You see, you're so strong, how can I compare to you? Don't talk about fighting once, even if a mage fought me 10 times, 100 times, I still wouldn't be able to win against you. How about this, you specify a number and let me cook for you. If I finish this number, you will return Feng Nu to me, okay? This won't be a loss for you. Moreover, although my cooking skills are outstanding, there will always be a time when you get tired of eating it. After you give me the number, I will introduce you to a good chef. Fatso's eyes revealed a trace of light. What you said seems to make some sense, but I prefer to sleep. Generally, after a big meal, I will have a good sleep. No, I can't promise you. If I say an astronomical number, you won't do it. Kid, why do you have so little confidence in yourself? Among ordinary people, there are only a few who can open the sky's eye at your age. You know, the sky's eye is unique to those who call themselves gods. With this thing, as a mage, your future progress will be very fast. One day, you will reach a level where you can contend with me. Sky's eye? What's that? Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat, subconsciously thinking of the transparent ball between her eyebrows. Fatso said, It's normal that you don't know. Ordinary people rarely know about the existence of the sky's eye. The sky's eye can be said to be a person's third eye. Everyone has it, and it is unique to humans. The sky's eye can see things that the original 2 eyes can't. However, ordinary people's sky's eye is automatically closed after birth. Although I don't know how you open the sky's eye, being able to open the sky's eye has endless benefits for your future development. Nian Bing stared blankly for a moment, saying, Is it that good? Why don't I feel it? It's just that using it to see things seems to be a bit clearer. Fatso snorted disdainfully, saying, What do you know? The space between the eyebrows is where the acupuncture points are. What you opened is not only the sky's eye, but also your spiritual cavities, even if you are a fool. As long as your sky's eye is opened, your spiritual cavities will also open, and you will become a smart person in a short time. Acupuncture points are very mysterious. It is said that there are 7 acupuncture points in the human body. If you can open all of them, you can become a real god. And the sky's eye is one of the most important of the 7 acupuncture points. Nian Bing thought for a moment, saying, "You said so much, but I still can't see the true use of the sky's eye. I am not a fool to begin with, so it doesn't matter if I become a bit smarter. Could it be that the sky's eye is better than the innate domain?" Fatso unhappily said, "You really don't know anything. What is the innate domain? If that thing can be compared to the acupuncture point, then there is no such thing as the godly continent. I am not too clear about the true use of the sky's eye. In any case, I can tell you that with this thing, in less than 10 years, you can become a mage at the very least." "What did you say?" Nian Bing stood up in shock. Even the dizziness in his head couldn't make up for the shock in his heart. 10 years to become a divine descent master? Is this really possible? Fatso laughed, saying, "Very surprised, right? Now you know the benefits of the sky's eye. The sky's eye has another name. It is called the trial's eye, also known as the eye of discernment. With it, you can see many things that you normally can't see and understand many things that you can't understand at all. Any knowledge will become easy in front of you. With the sky's eye, it is also very beneficial for opening the other 6 acupuncture points. Not to mention you, even in the godly continent, there are not many people who can open the sky's eye first. You should know that every time an acupuncture point is opened, the difficulty of opening the next one will double. And if the sky's eye isn't the first to be opened, it will inevitably be the last. As far as I know, the so-called strongest god in the godly continent only opened 6 acupuncture points. After thousands of years of effort, he still couldn't open the sky's eye. But if you can be the first to open the sky's eye, then it will be much easier to open the other 6 acupuncture points in the future. Although the difficulty will increase one by one, the increase will be half. If you calculate according to time, you can save at least 2/3. Nian Bing's heart shook. He suddenly thought of a possibility. "Fatso, could it be that you are a god from the godly continent?" Fatso stared blankly for a moment, only then did he realize that he had said too much. "You can think whatever you want, it doesn't matter if you want to think that way. But, I'm not thick-skinned, I will never call myself a god. What's so noble about a god? The so-called gods are actually all F***king humans. They are nothing more than putting gold on their faces. What's the point?" Nian Bing's heart shook intensely. He smiled bitterly and said, "Fatso, no matter what, you are at least a demigod guy. Why do you have to make things difficult for an ordinary human like me? Don't tell me you like to eat so much? Do gods need to eat too?" Fatso snorted and said, "I already said, there is no such thing as a god in this world. Those are people who call themselves gods. Since they are humans, of course they need to eat. It's just that those who are strong cannot eat for a long time and rely on the energy in their bodies to maintain their lives. Eating is an art. It's also something that people can enjoy from birth to death. In my heart, there's nothing that can compare to eating. So, I'll never change this hobby of eating for the rest of my life." Nian Bing took a deep breath. Fatso did not seem so scary, but why did he tell him so much? Yes, he must have thought that he would not be able to escape from his grasp no matter what. God, it was actually a demigod who captured Feng Nu. It seemed that if he wanted to rescue his beloved woman, he would have to go through an incomparably long process. "Kid, what are you thinking? Don't worry, although I like to eat, I am still very reasonable. It doesn't matter what you want to do, I will not restrict your freedom, but I will always be around you. If you want to run, that's fine, as long as you don't want your wife's life, you can run as far as you want. By the way, there's something I can tell you. Although your wife is locked in my interspatial bag, she can see everything that happens outside. You have to work hard. Maybe she'll be very touched when you save her. You don't have to be afraid that I can't find you. Your spiritual power has already been locked on by me, unless you leave the continent. Otherwise, I can find you no matter where you are. Nian Bing took a deep breath and said, "It seems that you are going to eat me?" Fatso smiled and said, "What do you think? All right, it's settled then. However, Fatty, I have a question. Can you answer me?" Fatso nodded and said, "Of course, I don't know how long I will eat you in the future, so answering a few questions is nothing. Go ahead and ask." Nian Bing nodded and said, "You made the things called apertures sound so magical, so how many apertures have you opened?" Fatso's face stiffened, but he quickly returned to normal and said, "My cultivation method is different from that of ordinary people, so the increase in my strength has nothing to do with the apertures. I can't answer your question. However, if we look at the strength of the other apertures apart from the celestial eye, my current strength should be equivalent to about 2.5 apertures. Is the celestial eye very different from the other apertures? Are the other apertures directly related to one's strength?" Nian Bing immediately asked the question in her heart. Since she couldn't defeat Fatso, the best way was to constantly improve her strength, and to improve her strength, this Fatso beside her was her target. Many of the things he brought to her were things she couldn't imagine, so she had to ask more. He seemed easy to talk to, and if she could learn some knowledge about cultivation from him, it would undoubtedly be a great benefit to her. After all, this guy was a demigod. Fatso nodded and said, "Of course there is a big difference. The celestial eye can be said to be the spiritual acupoint of the 7 apertures. It doesn't improve strength, but it improves learning ability and adaptability. You will slowly understand in the future. When the celestial eye is opened, your body will gradually change. Of course, if you want to obtain more strength, you will have to practice more. Only then can you fully utilize the celestial eye. As for the other apertures, each of them can make a qualitative leap in your strength. Of course, this qualitative leap is different, because each aperture has a different ability to improve. I'm not very sure about the concretization, so you will have to slowly explore it yourself. You have already opened the celestial eye, so you will gradually feel it. At first, I found it strange. In that competition, your strength seemed to be very ordinary. How did you suddenly become so powerful in just one day? It's because you've opened your heaven's eye acupoint. You've only just opened it. Slowly train yourself." Nian Bing's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. "Fatso, I am very grateful for you telling me this. If you can let Feng Nu go, I am willing to follow you and cook for you before my strength surpasses yours. How about it? How lonely would the Phoenix Maiden be if she were to be locked up in your space bag? Don't you know how uncomfortable it is to be lonely?" Fatso said indifferently, "Loneliness is uncomfortable, but it is also the biggest test for a person. Don't worry, didn't I tell you that she can't find everything outside? I won't let her go crazy. Moreover, it's quieter in my space bag, and it won't affect her cultivation. It will only be good for her and not bad. I definitely won't let her out. Hee kid, I like to see you anxious. This fatty is also very knowledgeable about food. A chef, under different moods, can make different dishes with the same ingredient. I think, for the sake of your wife's safety, the dishes you make must taste good." Nian Bing was speechless. He realized that Fatso was much more cunning than he thought. When he tried to trick him, he seemed to be very honest and did not hide anything at all. However, once he tried to think of a way to let Feng Nu go, he was more cunning than anyone else. It was impossible to threaten him, but it was also difficult to tempt him. "All right, I have wasted so much time talking to you." Fatso's stomach was swelling. Quickly cook for me. I want to eat the dishes that you are good at. I heard that you can make some kind of ice and fire 9 dragons dish, and I want to eat that. Don't worry, even though Fatso's stomach is big, he doesn't eat much. You just need to make 20 simple dishes for me to eat, and that's about it. After all, good dishes are about quality and not quantity. Damn, 20 dishes is not much. However, looking at your stomach, it seems that you can really put it down. However, Fatso, there's something you don't seem to realize. Making top-notch dishes requires a lot of ingredients, and only good ingredients can make good dishes. I don't think you have prepared that many ingredients. Fatso's face froze. Materials? This? I do have a little here, but there are only 2 pigs, 3 sheep and 2 cows. Can these be used to make your 9 heavens of ice and fire? Nian Bing snorted and said, Do you think I only know how to make barbecue? This is the wilderness. Don't tell me you want to eat a wild vegetable feast? Fatso scratched his big head that didn't have much hair. I only cared about you cooking for me, but I forgot that the ingredients are the most important. Then let's find a place. It's not too far from here to the capital city. At that time, there will be land to eat. Nian Bing shook her head. No, I can't go to the capital city. Everyone knows that I won the new mage competition there. I'm afraid that Emperor Huatian won't let me leave so easily. Since I've already left the city, I can't go back. If you want to eat, then find another city. Let me say this first, I don't have a single cent on me. You have to pay for the ingredients. My poor magic scrolls. That's all I have. I was prepared to use it to exchange for money at any time, but now I have nothing. The smile on Fatso's face became bitter. This money is indeed a problem. I don't seem to have much either. Nian Bing laughed and said, Aren't you very capable? That's good. You can sell your art and earn some money. With your ability, it shouldn't be a problem to earn enough money to eat. Bullsh *T, I'm a dignified. How can I sell my art? Kid, just follow me, I naturally have a way. Let me think, there should be a city further away from here. If we fly there, it shouldn't take too long. Nian Bing sat on the ground and said, Fly? I can't fly now. How do you want me to fly without magic power? Fatso was stunned and said, All right, I'll carry you and fly. You can recover some magic power and cook for me later. Kid, I'm warning you, don't try to play tricks. If you fall from the sky, you know the result. Nian Bing only saw a blur in front of her, and in the next moment, her body had left the ground. Fatso actually held her under his arm and flew up high. In the blink of an eye, everything on the ground became indistinguishable. So fast, how did he fly? Nian Bing's flying speed was definitely not half of Fatso's. Her heart was full of doubts. Was this magic? No, there was no fluctuation of magic. Could it be Doqi? Could Doqi fly? As if seeing the doubts in Nian Bing's heart, Fatso quickly flew while saying, Why can't Doqi fly? It's the same kind of energy, so Doqi can naturally do what magic can do, it's just that the way to do it is different. How is it, my flying speed isn't slow, ha 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 ha. Nian Bing's face showed a helpless and bitter smile. Facing such a powerful Fatso, he really didn't have any way. Now he could only take one step at a time. Fortunately, this Fatso seemed to really want to eat and didn't have any intention to harm him, otherwise, he was afraid that he wouldn't even know how he died. Thinking of this, he temporarily accepted his fate, closed his eyes, and carefully felt the mystery of the Tian Yen point that Fatso said. If he wanted to defeat this demigod Fatso, he could only continue to work hard. What? Nian Bing disappeared? Emperor Huatian frowned slightly. Prince Rong said somewhat helplessly, I also don't know what this brat is thinking. He didn't come to the banquet last night, and when I sent people to look for him, he was already gone. Your Majesty, do you want me to send people to capture him? Huatian shook his head and said, Forget it, Elder Rong, we are brothers. I believe in you, after all. He is a member of your Rong family. A fallen leaf will eventually return to its roots. One day he will come back. Oh right, those 2 brats from the Longmu Empire seem to be restless. It's not good for us to make too much of a fuss with them. I'll have to trouble you to send people to escort them out of the country. Prince Rong's eyes flashed with a cold light. He said indifferently, I've already noticed their movements. They thought that they were very secretive. However, they forgot that this is our territory. What is there that we don't know? Your Majesty, now that our army is strong, I think that after a few more days, it's time for us to act. Hua Tian sighed softly and said, Elder Rong, perhaps I'm really old, and the spirit of my youth has long been worn away. I'm not very interested in war, and I don't want to ruin the empire that I've painstakingly built because of a wrong decision. Do you understand what I mean? Prince Rong looked at his Xing Yuanmin brothers and smiled faintly. He said, I naturally understand what you mean. I've also thought about it for a long time before deciding to propose an attack. Our secret forces have been established for a long time. If we don't let them move around, how can they be sharpened? In terms of form, at least on the surface, the Qilu Empire is allied with us, but this time, 2 of their magicians are dead. I've already sent an envoy with gifts to apologize, and the Ottoman Empire's vitality has been greatly damaged after the last battle. If they want to recover, it won't be a matter of 1 or 2 days. When we have military operations, they can't wait to avoid us, and naturally won't come forward to throw away their lives. Just the Silver Feather Knights alone will take a long time to recover. Therefore, now is the best time for us to strike. I wish to personally lead a team to the Longmu Empire. My goal isn't to destroy them, but to plunder them like how the Aland Empire did. Only by fighting a monster and nurturing a battle can we maintain the strength of our army at its strongest state. Once the time is ripe, what's wrong with going against the entire continent? Don't you want to see the Huarong Empire unify the continent in your lifetime? Emperor Hua Tian's eyes lit up. Elder Rong, you seem to be very confident. Prince Rong smiled faintly and said, Oh, at that time, your spirit has been worn down. You're clearly testing my ability to grasp the situation. With our current situation, there's no need to take a share of the Qilu Empire. As long as we leave 200,000 soldiers to guard the eastern border, I don't believe they'll dare to act blindly without thinking. Although the Longmu Empire is a tough nut to crack, it's still very easy for me to leave a few teeth marks on it. Hua Tian smiled. No, you're right. For the army to maintain its strength, war is the best baptism. However, you have to remember our old policy. In order to avoid strong hatred between different races, we can burn and plunder, but we can't kill civilians. It's time for our secret forces to strike. How do you plan to fight? Prince Rong took a few steps forward to Hua Tian's side and said in a low voice, This time, the war must be sudden. I have 2 objectives. First, the Longmu Empire's Longmu plains are flat, fertile, and rich in all kinds of resources. Therefore, our primary mission is to plunder. I plan to lead 300,000 soldiers into battle. 100,000 of them will be combat troops, while the remaining 200,000 will be transportation and supply troop. We'll plunder as much as we can. As for the second objective, it's even simpler. An elite cavalry regiment from the Longmu Empire will be attracted to us, and then we'll destroy them with lightning speed. You know very well how much resources it takes to nurture a powerful cavalry regiment. As long as we can accomplish this second objective, even if the Longmu Empire wants to retaliate, they won't dare to act rashly. Hua Tian was somewhat surprised. 100,000 combat troops? Isn't that a little too little? Prince Rong's eyes were filled with confidence. It's not a little, definitely not a little. Although these troops aren't enough to occupy a city, nor to destroy the Longmu Empire, they're more than enough to destroy their elite troop. Don't tell me you still don't know the strength of our secret forces? Hua Tian's eyes lit up. All right, we'll do as you say. Prince Rong, listen up. Prince Rong bowed and said, Your subject is here. Hua Tian said seriously, I order you to lead the army to attack the Longmu Empire. You'll be in charge of all military operations, including the imperial family. If any of the soldiers don't listen, execute them first and report later. Yes, your majesty. Prince Rong straightened his back and looked towards the north. He thought to himself, Ice Goddess Priestess, just you wait. Longmu's weakening is only one step of my operation. As long as I'm alive, there will be a day when my cavalry will step onto the land of the Ice Moon Empire. Nianbing, you have to do your best. Grandfather will try his best to create all kinds of situations within the next 10 years. I hope that the day I unify the continent will also be the day you destroy the Ice Goddess Priestess. Hua Tian continued. Also, since we're going to use troops against the Longmu Empire, there's no need to send their people off this time. Other than those 2 contestants, the rest of the spies who dared to invade our country will all be eliminated. I wonder if the old man from the Longmu Empire will feel heartache when thousands of elite warriors and dozens of high-level magicians are destroyed? Prince Rong thought for a moment and said, Your Majesty, we can let that prince go, but that girl with the innate domain, shouldn't we also leave her behind? A person with such a powerful innate domain is a great threat to our future. Hua Tian shook his head and said, No, after all, they came to participate in the competition. We can't let them get hold of any information that can be used against us. Let them go. Don't tell me that our great country is afraid of a magician? That Qianhuan Bingyun should also be let go. Elder Rong, you understand what I mean. Prince Rong smiled. I understand, of course I understand. Your view of the big picture is always much better than mine. That's why I said that among us 3 brothers, you're the most suitable to be the emperor. Oh right, that guy old Su has been very quiet recently. I'm going to be born soon. Shouldn't we find him for a drink? Hua Tian laughed in spite of himself and said, Oh you must be thinking about those jugs of 100-year-old plum wine in old Su's house. All right, I've been wanting to drink for a long time. This time, we'll use it as a farewell party for you. I believe he won't miss it. The 2 old men with ulterior motives looked at each other and smiled. It was as if they were young again. What? Nianbing disappeared? Mu Jing frowned and looked at her brother. Mu Rong nodded and said, I've already sent more people to look for him. The competition just ended half a day ago. I hope he hasn't left the city yet. Could it be that he felt something? Why is he moving so quickly? Mu Jing frowned and said, That's impossible. Our movements are already secretive enough. How could he have found out? Brother, send more people. We must find his whereabouts. This person is very important. I didn't expect him to have such deep attainments in magic arrays. Although it was a bit of a trick, he still won against Bingyun. Just from this point alone, he's worth us spending more effort to win him over. If we can let the champion of the 5 Kingdoms' new magician competition publicly announce that he's joining our Longmu Empire, it will greatly benefit our country's reputation. Chapter 116. Mu Rong said, Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I've sent all my men out. I believe we'll get news soon. After all, Nianbing is just a sorcerer. He shouldn't be able to run fast. Run? Why should he run? A cold voice came from outside the door. Mu Rong and his sister were shocked. They had brought a large number of masters into the city to avoid being discovered by the Huarong Empire. They didn't order their men to guard the city. However, they didn't notice that someone had sneaked into the city. The door opened and 2 people walked in. The person in the lead was Rong Bing, the first person in the 3rd generation of the Rong family. Rong Ji followed behind him calmly, holding a slender magic staff in his hand. When Mu Jing saw them, a smile instantly appeared on her face. She hurried over and said, Didn't the banquet just end? Why are the 2 of you here again? Could it be that you want to exchange pointers with us siblings? Rong Bing said coldly, If you want to learn from each other, I'll grant you your wish. However, that's not why I'm here. The competition is over. I don't think there's any need for you to stay in the city. Please leave immediately. Mu Rong said angrily, Is this how the Huarong Empire treats its guests? Rong Bing said calmly, What kind of guests should we treat? The Hwarong Empire doesn't welcome guests like you. Since you're the contestants of the competition, I won't keep you. Otherwise, it won't be so easy for you to leave. Mu Rong wanted to say something, but Mu Jing stopped him. Okay, let's go. She pulled her brother and walked out of the door. Wait. Rong Bing said again. I forgot to tell you something. The city hasn't been very peaceful recently. There's a group of bandits. A total of 967 people snuck into the city, and all of them have been killed. Be careful on your way, don't run into any more bandits. Upon hearing the number 967, Mu Rong and his sister both trembled. Their eyes were filled with shock. They were all too familiar with this number. These were the experts they had brought to the Hwarong Empire. Mu Rong looked a little flustered. On the other hand, Mu Jing was more composed. She turned to look at Rong Bing and asked, What do you mean by that? Ice Melt said coldly, I don't mean anything. Take care. I won't be seeing you off. Mu Jing took a deep breath and glared fiercely at Rong Bing before dragging Mu Rong out of the room. Late at night, Mu Rong and his sister finally left Dutian City. On the way, Mu Rong could not help but ask the question that had been bothering him for a long time. Was what Rong Bing said true? Could it be that our people? Mu Jing nodded and said gloomily, It seems that we underestimated the Rong family. We still underestimated the Rong family's strength. They were able to kill so many of our experts without making a sound. They are so ruthless. It's obvious that they are going to attack our Longmu Empire. We have to go back and make preparations. Now we can only hope that Rong Bing didn't lie and won't chase after us. That would be our greatest fortune. Let's go. After wiping the sweat off her forehead, Nian Bing sat on the ground and did not want to move anymore. On the other hand, Fatso was very excited. He was stuffing all kinds of delicious food into his mouth. Although Fatso flew very fast, they only arrived at this small city called Senongdi when night fell. This city was not even 1/10 of Du Tian City. Fortunately, the Hwarong Empire was very prosperous. Although it was such a small city, Nian Bing still had all kinds of materials she needed. He hadn't cooked for a while. He made 20 high-quality dishes of ice and fire 9 heavens in one go. This made Nian Bing very tired. Especially when he used magic to make dishes while consuming a lot of magic power, it was even more strenuous. It was very easy for Fatso to solve the problem of money. In Nian Bing's words, he was a robber. In just a short time, he got a big bag of purple coins from God knows where. Fatso didn't seem to care about money at all. He gave all of it to Nian Bing. After the two of them bought enough materials, they rented a kitchen in this small restaurant. Nian Bing worked until midnight to finish these dishes. Delicious. As expected of a high-grade chef. There are so many changes in each dish. So magic can change the taste of a dish so much. Not bad, not bad. I didn't waste so much effort. Nian Bing, kid, aren't you going to eat? Nian Bing looked unhappily at Fatso, who kept stuffing the last dish into his bloody mouth. Eat what? Don't tell me you want me to lick the plate? The 20 dishes are finished. Even if you don't let Feng Nu go, can you let her come out for some air and let me see her? This request isn't too much, right? I worked hard for you for half a day. Fatso shook his head and said, Wishful thinking. Although the dishes you made today are very delicious, they are all made with ice and fire magic as the foundation. You can use 7 kinds of magic, but you only use 2 of them to cook. You are obviously perfunctory. How about this, when you make a full meal, I will consider letting you 2 meet. Nian Bing stood up angrily. Nonsense, what do you mean perfunctory? What do you think I am? Even a high-grade chef needs time to research new dishes. I only finished these 7 knives in these 2 days. Recently, I have been busy practicing magic. How can I have time to research cooking? Fatso laughed and said, That's your business. What does it have to do with me? Anyway, I only recognize dishes. Alright, now that I am full, I am going to find a place to sleep. You can do whatever you want. In any case, I will come to find you in 10 days. By then, I hope you can make some progress. The money I gave you is not allowed to buy magic scrolls. It is used to buy ingredient. The next time I see you using magic scrolls, I will not just defend. Kid, you are on your own. Nian Bing looked at the messy plates on the table and said, Then I will find a place to rest. After saying that, he turned and walked out. He knew that Fatso would not let Feng Nu go so easily. But as long as he could satisfy his need for food, Feng Nu would be safe for the time being. It was just that she had lost her freedom. If he wanted to save Feng Nu earlier, he had to increase his strength quickly. Strength. Wait a minute. Fatso patted his abnormally fat belly in satisfaction and came to Nian Bing's side. Kid, in order to leave a deeper impression on you, come with me first. After saying that, he grabbed Nian Bing and rose into the air twice. Nian Bing did not resist because he knew that it was futile. His tired body was supported by his mental strength. At this moment, he just closed his eyes and rested for a while. Not long after, Fatso had already flown out of the city with Nian Bing. They landed in an open space and casually placed Nian Bing on the ground. Nian Bing opened his eyes and saw Fatso looking at him with a mischievous smile. He immediately became vigilant. What are you doing? Fatso kneaded his fan-like big hands. His bones made cracking sounds and he laughed. After eating, I have to move my body. I will use you as a sandbag and beat you up. It should be a good choice. Don't worry, I know my limits. I will not beat you to death. After all, I will still be looking for you in 10 days. Nian Bing was about to refute when a strong force came from his chest and abdomen. His body immediately flew out of the gravity. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning between his chest and abdomen. The surging energy almost tore his body apart. If Garamandes did not transform his body back then, Nian Bing would have been finished with just this punch. Fatso did not have the intention to let Nian Bing go. His body rose into the air and caught up with Nian Bing in an instant. Another punch sent him flying. After taking this punch, Nian Bing only felt his vision turn black. His 6 senses were weakened to the lowest point. It was as if everything around him had disappeared. The next moment, his body shook again. Finally, his 6 senses left his body. Before he fainted, Nian Bing's last feeling was relief. A faint golden light was emitted from Fatso's body. His face was very calm. Every time Nian Bing was sent flying by his punch, a faint golden light would enter his body. A faint layer of golden light seeped into his body, and Nian Bing's body twisted to one side according to the direction of the force. The fatty didn't stop there. He continued to throw punch after punch. His attacks were very controlled. Every punch directly penetrated Nian Bing's body, but didn't damage his bones. After a long while, when Fatso's 108th punch sent Nian Bing flying, he finally stopped. He instantly caught up with Nian Bing's flying body and landed on the ground. He muttered to himself, "So good, so good. Flying in the air is really fun. Stinking brat, Fatso did not eat your food for free. You will understand in the future. And there is no one here. Let's leave him here. Find a place to sleep first." After hesitating for a moment, he pulled Nian Bing's body up from the ground. A layer of golden light covered Nian Bing's body. With a wave of his hand, Nian Bing's body directly penetrated into the ground. His entire body disappeared as if he was buried alive. Fatso smiled and said, "Stinking brat, since your Tianyan acupoint has been opened, you should experience the feeling of being an innate master." Fatso left. Nian Bing, who had fainted from the heavy punches, gradually woke up because there was no air to breathe. The intense pain in his body and the feeling of suffocation made him feel extremely uncomfortable. His surroundings were pitch black and he could not see anything. He wanted to struggle, but he found that his body was tightly pressed by the surrounding soil. He did not have the strength to break free. All kinds of intense pain that he had never felt before continuously attacked his body, his heart, and every inch of his skin. The feeling of suffocation became more and more obvious. His brain was hazy because of the lack of oxygen. Am I going to die? Am I going to die like this? No, I can't die. The strong desire to live made Ling Yanbing's brain awake again. What should I do now? I can only rely on magic. When he thought of this, he looked into his own body. Due to the depletion of the mana in his body, the 7 energy balls had become extremely small. With a single thought, Nian Bing immediately directed the fire elements to explode above his head. At the very least, he needed air to breathe in order to stay alive. Unfortunately, the use of magic was not only related to the magic in one's body, but also the fire elements in the air. At this moment, he was buried underground and the fire elements were extremely thin. Through his thoughts, Nian Bing realized that there was only an extremely small flame rising above him. He was completely unable to blow up the soil above him. At this moment, it was no longer a problem of magic. He could not see, hear, and speak. He could not chant any spells to help himself. The feeling of suffocation became more and more intense. The shadow of death shrouded his body and mind. The thoughts in his brain gradually became hazy. He no longer had the ability to think. His thoughts also fell into darkness. All kinds of bodily functions were developing in the direction of exhaustion. He was a little confused. Could it be that he was really going to die here? Was he really going to die? The breath of life gradually disappeared. As he neared death, the suffocating pain lessened a lot. His body seemed to be light as a feather. It seemed that there was a voice calling him towards the end of death. Was this the feeling of death? Did a person really have a soul? Was his soul leaving his body? Just when Nian Bing's life was about to come to an end, suddenly, he clearly felt his whole body shake violently. An unusually cold feeling instantly spread throughout his whole body. The majestic feeling that he had lost to his body reappeared. He did not need to breathe. The functions in his body began to operate again. The cool feeling came from between his eyebrows. At the same time, a trace of cool air began to seep from his skin into his body. Nian Bing was surprised to find that his body had entered a strange state of internal breathing. His body gradually lit up. Every meridian was so clear. The magic energy ball in his chest and abdomen began to operate faster. What surprised him the most was that the transparent ball between his eyebrows actually emitted a faint spiritual energy. Through the perception of his spiritual energy, his spiritual senses quickly spread out. Through this third eye, he could see the surrounding soil clearly. He could see everything contained in the soil clearly. He could even see the lines on some small stones in the soil. His spiritual senses continued to extend and actually broke through the soil. Nian Bing only felt his spirit light up. Everything in the outside world appeared clearly in his mind. It was a very strange feeling. As the cool feeling continued to enter his body, Nian Bing discovered that the blood flow in his body was increasing. His thoughts were getting stronger and stronger, and the blood in his body was circulating faster and faster. A cool feeling was nourishing every part of his body. Even though there was no obvious increase in his magical power, Nian Bing could feel that his body was changing. The excruciating pain was gradually disappearing, and a faint golden light appeared in the blood circulating in his body. Tiny golden light spots gradually merged into his meridians as his blood circulated, and then entered his bones through his meridians. Finally, they stayed on the surface of his skin and melted away. After the comfortable feeling, there was a feeling of power. Nian Bing had never felt so full of power before, and it was no longer difficult for him to break out of the ground. However, he was no longer in a hurry to leave this place. The cool feeling around him was indescribably comfortable. Since that was the case, why was he in a hurry to leave? Time passed by minute by minute. Nian Bing entered a strange state. That faint cool feeling continued to spread. He gave up on sensing his body and turned to wholeheartedly meditating. Through the continuous strengthening of his mental strength, He attracted the magical elements in the air above the ground to seep into the ground. Then, he absorbed them into his body and strengthened his magic power. This was the first time for Nian Bing to cultivate like this. However, as his magic power gradually increased, he discovered that not only was the growth of his magic power not slower than usual, it was also a very good exercise for his mental strength. The heavenly eye between his brows was filled with a feeling of transparency. Nian Bing discovered that through the connection of his mental strength, he could already control the mental strength within the heavenly eye at will. Under the nurturing of the heavenly eye, the growth of his mental strength was extremely fast. The first manifestation of the growth of his mental strength was the strengthening of his senses. All of his senses became abnormally clear, and the feeling of being in control of everything around him was so wonderful. Gradually, his cultivation entered a wonderful cycle. He no longer needed to use his mind to control it, and his body naturally reached a harmonious state of cultivation. Nian Bing didn't know that by cutting off the cultivation of external breathing, the various energies in his body had already begun to transform into the Xiantian realm under the effect of the heavenly eye acupoint. The Xiantian realm and the Hotian realm were two completely different realms. Especially the aura of the energies were completely different. Not to mention him, even his grandfather, the flame cheapskate Lion King Rongyan, hadn't entered the Xiantian realm. The advantage of the Xiantian realm was that he could naturally attract all the Hotian aura for his own use. After entering a fixed state of cultivation, Nian Bing no longer paid attention to it. Instead, he began to think about everything that had happened to him recently, especially the impact that Fatso had on him. Nian Bing had also met many powerful people. For example, his grandfather, the Flame Lion King, had already entered the strongest realm of magicians, the God Summoning Master. For example, his newly recognized godmother, Yu Ruyan, was the powerful swordsman. However, no matter if it was Rong Yen or Yu Ruyan, compared to that Fatso, they were still a little lacking. At least, in front of Rong Yen and Yu Ruyan, he still had some ability to contend against them. However, this Fatso gave him a feeling of endless pressure. He didn't even have the slightest chance of winning. He had only felt this kind of feeling from the Fire Dragon King, Garamandes. However, Garamandes had never displayed any powerful strength in front of him. Therefore, the feeling wasn't obvious. At this moment, Nian Bing really believed in Garamandes. If he was by his side, he wouldn't have suffered such a big loss. What should he do now? If he wanted to save Feng Nu with his own strength, it was definitely not something that could be done in a day or two. However, Feng Nu was still locked up by Fatso. It was hard to predict how it would affect her. He had to save Feng Nu as soon as possible. This was his first task. Since he couldn't do it himself, then he would have to rely on external forces. Thinking of this, Nian Bing had already determined his path forward. From the time the magic in his body mutated until now, Nian Bing hadn't had the time to carefully think about the situation after the change in his magic. In addition, the various knowledge that his grandfather had passed on to him and the things that he had seen in the library required time to think carefully before he could merge them with the magic that he was good at. Now was the perfect time to think about these questions while cultivating. Time day by day passed by. Nian Bing, who was underground, had already completely immersed himself in cultivating and thinking. He didn't have any awareness of the outside world. After an unknown amount of time, the spiritual energy that he had spread out suddenly moved. His third eye clearly saw Fatso descending from the sky, landing right on top of his head. Fatso looked at the ground with a surprised expression, muttering to himself, "Good boy, to be able to be buried for 10 days in a row. It seems that he has really grasped the mysteries of the innate realm. Boy, come out." As he said that, he pressed one hand on the ground, followed by the concave shape of his palm being lifted upwards. Nian Bing only felt a strong force coming through. The surrounding soil was no longer an obstacle, and his body broke out of the ground in a flash. Everything became bright. Returning to the ground again, Nian Bing's whole body produced a kind of floating feeling, as if the weight of his body didn't exist, and he lightly landed on the ground. Fatso looked at Nian Bing, and couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. At this time, although Nian Bing was covered in soil and his clothes were tattered, his pair of deep blue eyes had become abnormally bright. The bright eyes were emitting a dazzling brilliance, and a circle of 7 colored lights slowly revolved around his body. Although it wasn't obvious, it could still be clearly perceived. After Nian Bing came out of the ground, he also had a wonderful feeling. The surrounding air was no longer simple air, and all kinds of magic elements were cheerfully rushing towards his body. He didn't need to meditate, and didn't need to cultivate in a room. These magic elements actually flowed naturally through his skin into his body, fusing with the magic power in his body. Although these magic elements weren't strong, but to be able to condense them without cultivating was something that Nian Bing had never thought of. In fact, this was the advantage of the innate realm. The innate realm had a strong attraction to all kinds of Hotian energy. Nian Bing had gone through the underground life, and with the help of the Tian Yen acupoint, he had already transformed from a Hotian to an innate. Therefore, this kind of situation had occurred. Fatso laughed and said, "Boy, I haven't seen you for 10 days, and you've changed quite a bit. Let's see if you can surprise me today." Nian Bing said with some surprise, "It's already been 10 days? I feel like it's only been 2 or 3 days." Fatso pursed his lips and said, "I usually wake up once every 10 days when I sleep. Don't tell me I'm not clearer than you? When cultivating, time will naturally fade. Come, let me see the changes in your magic." Taking a deep breath of fresh air, Nian Bing said, "Wait a moment, let Feng Nu out for me to take a look. If I'm not sure of her safety, I won't fight with you." Fatso waved his hand, and in a flash of light, Feng Nu charmingly appeared by Fatso's side. She was clearly conscious now, and when she saw Nian Bing, her eyes immediately revealed deep emotions. Although she couldn't speak, her concern was obvious, as if she was asking Nian Bing something. Seeing Feng Nu again, Nian Bing subconsciously rushed over. Feng Nu, with a flash of light, Feng Nu's figure disappeared again, and Fatso's mountain-like body blocked Nian Bing's path. "Boy, you miss your wife, right? Then try your best to defeat me first." Nian Bing stood still, snorted, and said, "Fine, you want to fight. Then let's fight." A 7-colored light flashed, and 7 magic swords appeared in mid-air at the same time. Nian Bing cast a gale spell on himself and retreated. Then, the 7 swords landed on the ground at the same time. He calmly chanted, "Ice, you are the representation of cold. Fire, you are the source of burning heat. The aura of ice and fire, please allow me to fuse your characteristics, using your common source as a guide. Let's resonate." The hexagram of ice and fire and the 7 magic swords landed at the same time. Ice, fire, earth, wind, space, light, and darkness, the 7 completely different types of magic auras were released with the appearance of the hexagram. The magic elements in the air quickly condensed in this direction, and the originally active magic elements gradually became violent. The dense air formed by the 7 colors formed a layer of faint light in front of Nian Bing. Under the effect of the innate realm, the magic elements continued to condense on the 7 magic swords. At the same time, the magic elements also gathered on Nian Bing's body at an even faster speed. The surging magic elements continued to strengthen Nian Bing's magic power, and the feeling of being filled with energy increased his confidence greatly. He also wanted to see how much his magic power had improved after 10 days of cultivation. Through the heaven's eye, Nian Bing could not clearly see the fluctuations of the magic elements in the surroundings. With a thought, the holy radiant dawn blade that pierced through the heavens and earth floated into his hand, the tip of the blade pointing diagonally at the hilt of the righteous yang blade that was stabbed into the ground. Under the illumination of the divine stone of fire on the righteous yang blade, the golden radiance was enveloped in a layer of faint red light. Fatso still stood there, and obviously had no intention of attacking Nian Bing. He was silently waiting for him to attack. Nian Bing once again took a deep breath and calmly chanted, "Rise. The holy light that pierces through the heavens and earth. You represent the endless light that illuminates the earth. Transform the aura of the holy light. In the radiance of ice and fire, release your holy radiance. Holy radiant." The holy white light on the holy radiant blade instantly rose to the extreme, illuminating the entire hall as if it was daytime. Holy radiant, this was a holy radiant that could purify everything, a light element offensive spell of the 8th step. As Nian Bing slowly raised the holy radiant blade, a gentle and holy halo continuously condensed. Fatso discovered to his astonishment that Nian Bing was actually compressing the holy radiant blade. Compressing a spell of the 8th step was not an easy thing to do, and without the control of a large amount of spiritual force, it was simply impossible to do so. Very clearly, in the course of these 10 days of cultivation, Nian Bing's spiritual force had greatly improved. With a faint smile, Nian Bing's eyes revealed a faint cold light, and she loudly chanted, "Burn, the heartless flame." Red flames rose from the divine stone of fire, and instantly turned into blue true fire. The blue flames continued to expand. Nian Bing did not continue chanting, but used the holy radiant blade in her hand to absorb the blue flames. The milky white brilliance rendered the blue flames, and the holy radiant blade in Nian Bing's hand erupted with a 5-zhang long blade light, and the magical elements seemed to have gone crazy. At this time, Nian Bing's eyes emitted a lustrous luster, and a white light shone between her eyebrows. Her spiritual force was instantly raised to the limit, and she continued to compress the holy radiant blade that was attached to the blue flames. Fatso frowned as he looked at Nian Bing and said, "Kid, your magic is indeed strong, but do you think your magic can hit me? Don't forget how you used up your magic scroll last time." Hearing Fatso mention the magic scroll, Nian Bing's eyelids could not help but twitch, and she almost lost control of the enormous energy in her hand. She coldly said, "Damned Fatso, if I can't hit you, would I have to use so much effort?" The 5-zhang long bluish-white blade light had shrunk to 4 zhang under Nian Bing's continuous efforts, and at this time, the enormous burden was already making Nian Bing feel a little strained. An 8th-level magic with blue true fire, its power was above the 9th level, and with the special characteristics of the fusion magic, this magic surpassed the 9th level. With such a powerful magic being compressed with spiritual force, even if Nian Bing's spiritual force had reached a new level, the speed of consumption was still very impressive. Slowly taking a step forward, under the enormous pressure, Nian Bing's footsteps left an inch-deep footprint on the ground. With a backhand suction, under the effect of spiritual force and magic, the burning blue true fire of the righteous yang blade fell into Nian Bing's left hand. The back of the 2 magic blades lightly touched, and the original blue flame of the holy radiance blade was sucked back into the righteous yang blade. The blue flame instantly rose up, and the surging energy in its power did not seem any weaker than the holy light activated by the spell. Fatso showed a surprised expression for the first time. "This is the first time I've seen an 8th-level magic used like this, using light to ignite a burning flame, and then using spiritual force to compress and burst out. Good kid, you have some skills, but I want to see how you can make it impossible for me to dodge." Just as Fatso finished speaking, Nian Bing moved. Both of his arms stretched out horizontally at the same time, and walked step by step towards Fatso. When he was 10 zhang away from Fatso, both of his wrists turned and waved forward at the same time. Where the ghost hand falls, the sky changes, carving 100 waves, the divine work of ancient and modern times. The blade rises, the waning moon reflects the cold spring. Under the effect of the milky white flame on his right hand, 9 huge light dragons appeared. Those were soul dragons with a holy aura, and the dragon roared continuously, completely sealing off all of Fatso's escape routes. Seeing the sudden appearance of the light dragons, Fatso was shocked. A strange expression appeared on his fat face, and he subconsciously took a step back. At this time, Nian Bing's actions were not finished. Ghost bewitching moon halo, ice stream shatters, carving a jade parasol phoenix, divine music turns the clear sound, blades roar startles the birds. On his left hand, under the baptism of the blue true fire, 9 huge blue phoenixes appeared. The flames of the phoenixes filled the gap between the 9 dragons. In an instant, the dragons and phoenixes cried together, bringing with them countless surging auras. The light and flames perfectly merged together, and within 50 feet of Fatso, was completely covered by the 9 dragons and 9 phoenixes. The blue and white light constantly leaped, and the 2 originally 8th level magic, under the effect of the fusion, had soared to the 10th level. The dance of the dragons and phoenixes. The light of the 9 dragons and 9 phoenixes, in a flash, engulfed Fatso's area. In the light, Fatso's voice sounded. Damn, this brat still has such a unique skill. Boom! Before the huge explosion occurred, Nian Bing had already retreated dozens of feet away using the wind technique.